Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Night Owl. I am your host, Price of Reason, and as usual, we're going to be going over some topics from pop culture, news, entertainment, and gaming. There's a lot of stuff going on, and let's start with just something funny that I saw that it seemed like a nothing article, but this is actually very interesting stuff because and I'll explain why. So many articles we see these days around Disney, and they all seem really innocent, especially if you look at the industry trades. So let's start here with this one that I thought was very interesting. I'm going to go here. Hopefully, you can see this. Basically, Sony Pictures has appointed Jill Ratner as their general counsel. And the reason why this is interesting is that Jill Ratner, until just like 5 minutes ago, was actually the general counsel for Disney. Now, normally this wouldn't mean a lot. I guess people can move from one company to another, and of course, the article is presenting it in kind of a very innocent way. She was for years at Disney, and now she's going to move to Sony, and of course she is, and that all makes sense. But what I'll say is that considering all of the different things that Disney have going on, it's interesting that a person says, you know what, maybe I'm going to jump ship now. Maybe I'm going to go somewhere else. Maybe I'll go over to Sony. Sony, they make some pretty good business decisions here and there. At least, they never jumped into that streaming game. Probably saved a lot of money by doing that. They are a little more economical and smart with the way they spend money. Even when they make mistakes, like when they made Ghostbusters 2016, and it was sort of, for lack of a better term, considered more woke or whatever it is, they then saw that people didn't like it, course corrected with Afterlife. Frozen Empire, I mean, that wasn't so great. It wasn't as good as Afterlife, but the fact that they were even listening to what the fans wanted, the fact that even you had Spider-Man No Way Home, at the end, that's a Sony movie. Now, sure, sometimes they make mistakes like Madam Web, but I don't think we're going to get 7 more Madam Web. They're not like Disney. If they lose money on a movie, they get the hint. So they're not perfect. They make mistakes too, but I think that they run a better operation than Disney does. And the fact that Disney's lawyer wants to run away from Disney and go to Sony, I think that says something. And don't forget, Disney have a lot of stuff going on. This year they had all this stuff with Florida. They're losing their taxes. They're fighting with the governor there, and they just keep picking fights and running into different lawsuits. Employees suing them, women suing them, and then there was other stuff even at the park that there were some people who were. I don't want to say words that'll be considered problematic, but there was something that had to do with children and people at parks, and I think there's maybe lawsuits there. In addition, you have the Gina Carano lawsuit. You have a lot of stuff going on, and I guess, and I'm just speculating here, if you're the general counsel of Disney, first of all, that's a great job to have, and if everything is great and everybody's riding high, you want to stay there. But the fact that you want to kind of run away and jump ship, I would say that has something to do with knowing that a lot of either bad things are going to happen, or even you just don't feel like dealing with. You don't want your name attached to all of these things, because at the end, even if there's outside counsel that's being hired for the Gina Carano trial, for all these fights with the state and all these different things, she has to give the final word. She oversees even the outside counsel, and I assume that she looked at her plate, she saw what she had on it, and she said, you know what, maybe Sony has it's a little quieter to be at Sony now. And she went over to Sony. And I think it means something. Can't tell you 100%, but I do feel that it does have meaning. You can, of course, in the chat, you can let me know what you think. But sure, I do think that it does have meaning. And let's see what else we had here. Jeremy Renner. That's another thing that I really was happy to see this today. See, Jeremy Renner, he had that horrible accident. Not to mention that he was also in that very miserable show on Disney Plus. That show Hawkeye, where it was supposedly about Hawkeye, but they made it about some little girl, and Hawkeye was sort of just a side character in his own show. these are just pictures. For people who don't know, Jeremy Renner, who played Hawkeye in the MCU, he also he had this terrible accident where he was severely injured. It was one of those accidents that people could actually end their life with an accident like that. They had to rebuild his rib cage and his eye sockets and all this other stuff. And today they actually premiered a trailer for the next season of Mayor of Kingstown. So Jeremy Renner was able to go through all that physical therapy, go through all that accident, all that terrible experience, get out of bed, go to set, and actually film. And you know what? I'm really happy. I think that Jeremy Renner, I've always been fond of this actor. I like him, and he seems like a good guy. And the fact that he went through this accident and that he managed to get through it, it says something about his character, about his strength, and I wish him well. I think so often we report about stuff that's annoying or bad or it's that's bad news, but I think that in this case, this was actually good news. So if there's already something good that we can celebrate, that's always a good thing to do. And so that's that. And then I'm going to just check out a few other things. It's been a long day. I hope everybody's doing well. So many things going on. Oh, there was one thing that happened today. There's a rumor. Let me pull this up. Star Wars and George Lucas. That is a rumor. I don't know if this rumor is true. Let's see for a second. I'm trying to pull up this article. Give me 1 second. Here it is. Hopefully I'm sharing the screen, or if I'm not, I'm going to share it right now. So, George Lucas, this is from that Park Place. George Lucas is reportedly returning to Star Wars for new live-action series. Now, to be fair, this comes from a person, a second-unit director called Roger Christian. It seems like something that he just blurbed on some podcast or something like that, but I don't know how much we can really trust that it's happening. At the same time, though, I do think that there's a chance that it could happen. When I was saying that recently, I don't know if you remember, there was that whole Disney board proxy fight where Nelson Peltz was trying to get on the board, a billionaire businessman, along with other people. They didn't like sort of the woke direction that Disney went in, and they were trying to take the company back and make it more for the mainstream audience. And Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, and all of his allies, Disney invested, I think, $40-50 million in campaign money just to run a campaign against Nelson Peltz, to make him look like he's an enthusiast of Orange Man and an Orange Man bad. And they did this whole thing just to get rid of him. And at the time, one of the important moments for Bob Iger was when George Lucas, who has, I think he has, was it 31 million shares? I don't know. He has a lot of shares of Disney. And at the time, he's a huge shareholder of Disney because of his Star Wars deal. So at the time, George Lucas, what he did was he actually released a statement which he endorses Bob Iger. And it looked like a statement that was written by Bob Iger. It was very pro-Disney, very pro-Iger, and it really helped Iger's momentum. And at the time when it happened, I was one of the first people to say on a number of different streams, probably also on the Night Owl, that I believe that somebody promised George something. There were a few options. One, maybe he's just kind of older and somebody pulled a fast one on him. The other thing is his wife sits on the board of JP Morgan Chase. She's friends with Jamie Dimon. They're friends with Iger. They like the Disney stock. They didn't want the stock to drop. There's a lot of politics there behind the scenes, and maybe they convinced George to do it. But I feel like along with being convinced to do it, George also got something in return. So first of all, the first thing that happened after they did that deal with Disney and George Lucas endorsed Iger, immediately they announced that the Cannes Film Festival, was going to do a special event to honor Lucas. And it happened so quickly after that signing that I almost feel like something had to do with maybe Disney, Bob Iger picking up the phone, calling some people over in France and saying, do some big event for George. Scratch my back here. Let's do a big event for George. Because George likes getting awards and likes being honored. So I think that was something that was part of that deal. In addition, Now it's being said that perhaps George is going to be some kind of creator of a new series, a live action series, maybe Disney Plus show or series for Disney. I personally think that it's possible. I said from that moment that they may have promised him something. They may have said, okay, get behind Iger, say that he's the best, and you can have a show. You can have something that you're in charge of. How much will you really be in charge? Who knows? Maybe it'll just be a title and they'll listen to a few of the ideas and just do bad things with them. I do know that initially George had hoped when that whole Disney deal took place, he thought he was selling Lucasfilm in 2012. He thought he was selling it to Disney, and that Disney really, really cared about his input. That it wanted to hear all of his ideas. It wanted his screenplays for the sequel trilogy. That people were just so excited about George Lucas, and he really believed that. I think that it was a situation that perhaps his ego got the best of him. What he didn't realize is that Bob Iger never wanted his ideas, never wanted him, and they just thought to themselves, "We need the IP, we need to get rid of George Lucas," and that's exactly what happened. And there was a situation that prior to signing the agreement, George Lucas said that he wanted to put it in the contract that he would actually be the creative authority and they'd go to him and he'd weigh in and do all that stuff. And Iger refused to sign that. Now, George still probably thought to himself that Iger would love his ideas and want him there. But I think at that point, once Iger didn't agree to sign that clause and wanted it removed, I think it was never going to work out for George. And I think also, even with Kathleen Kennedy, he thought to himself, Kennedy is loyal to me because for years I've known her and she's in the Spielberg crew and, she's good people. But then he learned very quickly that Kathleen Kennedy didn't care about all of that loyalty either. And he kind of found himself with the short end of the stick. I mean, short end of the stick and $4 billion. So it's not like he's living in the street. But it's not like he had $5 in his bank account prior. He probably at least had a billion and a half before. He could have lived very nicely off that billion and a half. And Star Wars should have meant something to him. But whatever, there's nothing we can do. He sold it. Now maybe they did a little carrot and the stick with him. They said, well, say you like Iger and you can come back and do this thing. And hey, that's fine. That's fine. It is what it is. I personally don't know if we'll see him, and even if we do see him, I don't suppose that it's going to have any kind of special effect or have any kind of special meaning. And there's a lot of other stories. Let's see. I hope this thing is being streamed now in multiple locations. Let me see for a second if this is all running. I was in such a hurry. It's been quite a day, and doing well. Thankful that you spend this time with me on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. Uh, I've been told that I have a good voice for late night. I don't know if this is true, but I'm hoping it's true. And if you enjoy what we do here on the Night Owl every Tuesday and Thursday, I'm very grateful for that. And yeah, let's look at some other stories that I think could be interesting. I see this thing. This is an interesting thing that just popped up, which I think is worth talking about. So, Luke Grimes, who stars on Yellowstone, he's basically saying that he thinks it's unfortunate about Kevin Costner's exit. You got to do what you got to do. I've always had an issue with this whole departure of Kevin Costner. I think that Yellowstone, initially, when it wasn't such a big show, I actually think it was better. It was better because I feel like they were doing a better job on it, and Taylor Sheridan was writing better, and the whole cast was happier. And I think that as over the pandemic, this show kind of exploded and became from this kind of niche cable show, like such a mainstream show that everybody loves and is so interested and invested in. I think that a lot of the success went to these actors' heads. And that's really unfortunate because, sometimes for me, I think that actors shouldn't forget that as much as they're happy and they're making money and it's great for them, never forget that it's the viewers that actually at the end make all of that possible for you. It's the fans that make it possible. The fans are in a way like customers. And I'm not saying that on a show you can always be please everybody with the writing, and maybe some people will like something and some people won't like something. But the fact that that set has become sort of a setting where it feels like a lot of very not greedy. I don't know what. They all argue about the money, about the merchandise, about this, about that. I understand there's a lot of money to be made there, but all of these arguments, and even with Kevin Costner and everything that happened there with Taylor Sheridan, all these people are making a ton of money. At the end of the day, they're ending this show. This is the final season. They wanted initially Kevin Costner to come and film his scenes. He refused to film the scenes. Then I don't know if he was willing to film the scenes. He suddenly had to film his own Western movies. For me, I mean, I'm not saying his career was dead, Kevin Costner, but before this show, I don't think anybody was itching to see him in Western movies. I think that this show really helped revive his career in that sense, that he became very relevant again. And for him to immediately, for the success to go to his head and him wanting to do his movies and all that other stuff and sort of flexing his muscles with Taylor Sheridan, I'm just not excited about that. But it's show business. I guess that happens. If I were all these people, I would say, you know what? All these fans, they put us where we're at now. All this money that we're making, all of our success, it's the fans, it's the audience, it's the customers. Why don't we make just a really good final 6 episodes or whatever it is, 10 episodes, just make really, really good episodes, tie up the show nicely, uh, have everybody leave it in the best possible way, in the best mood. Nobody likes it when you invest in a show for years and at the end, in the final season, the creators and the cast and everybody kind of takes a dump on you. I mean, just look at the original Game of Thrones show, which so many seasons people were on the edge of their seat. And then that 8th season came out, and man, that 8th season was disappointing. I mean, House of the Dragon has managed to revive some interest in the franchise, but nobody's going to say that Game of Thrones, the original flagship show, that one didn't end well. That one had one of the worst final seasons. It was an insult to all the people that were invested throughout all the years. And again, I guess sometimes there's shows that the creators and the people working there and the cast and crew, and there's people that just become a victim of their own success. I mean, to be fair, in the case of Game of Thrones, it was because those two guys, Benioff and Weiss, the success went to their head. They wanted to go to Netflix and do deals with them. They wanted to do a trilogy with Kathleen Kennedy, a Star Wars trilogy, and they were in a hurry to finish Game of Thrones. And that is so stupid, because at the end, all that other stuff didn't even really pan out for them. Yes, they now, after years, made some show for Netflix, but that wasn't worth sacrificing Game of Thrones over. And the truth is, George R.R. Martin may not have finished his books, and maybe they didn't have the source material to finish that show properly, but they didn't have to sit there and write those episodes themselves. They could have hired a really good team of writers, brought George on as a consultant. They should have worked it out in a different way and given a final season that really feels like you've stuck the landing. There's nothing worse than creating such a big show and not sticking the landing. That's why I like shows. When I think about shows like Breaking Bad, you watch that show from start to finish, I feel like it's a show that sticks the landing. That's why for me, Breaking Bad, maybe out of dramas, has to be top 3, has to be for me top 2. The only other show that I really like is The Sopranos. I would say Breaking Bad and The Sopranos are in that conversation. For me, I think I like Breaking Bad just a little bit better because it tells a more cohesive story, but The Sopranos is great too. And maybe in third place, maybe The Wire. But those are shows that really went and did what they needed to do. Kevin Costner and all this drama with Yellowstone, I'm not blaming it only on Kevin Costner, because I think Taylor Sheridan, the creator and showrunner, had something to do with this too. But overall, I'm getting a sense that set has become a lot of kind of very I don't know if to say greedy, but egotistical people that have taken their success for granted and forgotten who their fans are, who their customers are. And I never like that. So that's my personal opinion. Of course, you can share your opinions with me. Um, the real Sean Crumble says YouTube is working. And then he says, the whole reason I won't want to watch a show totally complete anymore. By the way, Sean, are you still here? If you're here, if you happen to have a few minutes, Sean's a good friend of mine. Let me see for a second. Where is Sean? Uh, this is such a kind of low key thing that I'm doing. You got time? So I asked Sean, let's see what his situation is. Matthew Marcillo, good evening and greetings, Price. How are you doing tonight? My man with the beloved chat, sisters and brothers. What is up tonight? I'm doing good, Matthew. Thanks for coming by. It has been a long day. But yeah, I agree with what the real Sean Crummell was saying. Basically, you always have to wonder these days before you get invested in a show. I almost prefer that it runs a few seasons. I almost prefer that it just runs for all the seasons, and somebody will just tell me this is a really good show. I would prefer that. I want to know that there's an actual end game to it. There's nothing that annoys me more, and especially in our day of streaming, you start watching a show, you get invested in it, you do all this stuff, and then at the end, they just pull the plug on it. Recently, there is actually a show, an animated show on HBO Max called Scavenger's Reign. And every week I do a stream with some friends about it. It is kind of a trippy, heavy metal type of sci fi show. It's animated, it's really quirky and strange and different. And it's not perfect. There are a few comments that I have about it, but it's so different and unique. And at the end, that showed Warner Brothers didn't seem to give it a second season until now. Meanwhile, Velma, they just released a second season today. Velma is one of the worst shows I've ever seen in my entire life. The first season, I reviewed that extensively on my channel. This second season is so bad that they dumped all the episodes at once, and I'm going to check it out right after this stream. But I'm pretty sure it's nothing to write home about. That first season of Velma is legitimately one of the worst shows that I've ever seen. And that it would get another season is really shameful when there's really good shows that should be getting other seasons. So that's why it's difficult to really invest and put your energy and time into things. But what I will say is that in the case of Velma, I suppose that this was always a deal that they signed up for 2 seasons in advance. In some cases, um, these kind of animated shows have those type of deals. So maybe there was always going to be 2 seasons. They didn't know, Warner Brothers, and this was prior to Zaslav arriving. Maybe they simply didn't know it would be such a disaster. And I guess he could have used as a tax write-off like Batgirl, but maybe he decided not to do a tax write-off, and he just said, let's just dump it all at once and get it over with. Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible show. I see that somebody ETNW HVAC says, I also don't like build up without payoff. Of course, nobody likes watching a show that you're invested, you're in there 100%, and then one day people just tell you, oh, it's over. There have been a number of those on Netflix. There was one. It's the one that David Fincher did. The killer, serial killer. I don't remember what it's called. Mind Hunter. I don't know. It's something that has to do with serial killers. And I watched. I think there was a season, maybe 2 seasons. It was really, really interesting. And they left it off in a place where this FBI investigator, I think, is going to investigate Manson, which was really interesting in terms of him investigating a serial killer, and you really or he's trying to catch him. And I was very invested in that show, and it was of high quality by David Fincher, and they just pulled the plug on it. I don't know why they pulled the plug on it. I have no idea why they wouldn't continue that show, but they just wouldn't. And yeah, I mean, people today want to know that their time isn't. People shouldn't take our time for granted. There was also another show on Amazon called The Peripherals. Now, this was something kind of quirky and cool. It was about people that sort of they're in the future, and they enter this kind of virtual reality game that actually takes them to the past and really takes them to the past or the future. I'm trying to now remember. It's like time travel through this virtual reality. It was a very high concept kind of trippy show that I think that it was Jonathan Nolan that did it, Christopher Nolan's brother. And certainly that first season was very interesting. It set up a lot of great ideas. and I remember reviewing it. I put up a review, and it was one of the videos that the least amount of people watched. And the reason the least amount of people watched it is they did so little marketing for it. I think people didn't even know it was on, and I was probably one of the only people watching it. But what's sad is that out of all the crap that these streamers put on, that show was actually legitimately good and interesting, and I wanted to see where they take it, and I'll never see it. So I invested all that time and energy, and it leads to nothing. It's just frustrating sometimes. Uh, Printers and modems. I don't know what the Velma is a crime against sentience. It is the crime against humanity. Matthew Marcillo says The Sopranos is legendary. For James Gandolfini was the embodiment of the New Jersey La Casa Nostra saga. Love The Sopranos except the ending. For I think David Chase chickened out with the last scene. You know, I didn't love the way The Sopranos ended, but I don't know what to tell you. Over time, I've kind of accepted that ending. It was sort of an open ending. I guess you kind of figure that they may have killed him. And now, at some point, when James Gandolfini had passed away in real life, it just sort of, to me, it means that that was the end of that character. Maybe they just figured you didn't need to see him die. He dies, and that's it. It's a creative choice. It is kind of a chickening out, but it's something different. At least you remember that was the ending. I have mixed feelings about it. I don't necessarily hate it, but it's also not gonna get a medal for me for the best ending ever, but I didn't completely hate it. Whereas Breaking Bad, I thought that was the perfect ending. Perfect ending. I love how it ended. I think that it got everything right, and, Breaking Bad really is a show that I don't think that since Breaking Bad they've managed to do something that was better than Breaking Bad. Maybe before that they didn't manage to do as good as Breaking Bad. There were a lot of good shows, but I don't think they were as good as that. Not as complete as telling a story that you're just invested in with the characters from start to finish. Uh, as I was watching it, I felt that it was something that I wouldn't see a lot of in the future. It's not that I was thinking I wasn't delusional. I didn't think at the time, oh, there's going to be 70 more Breaking Bad. I thought it was really something special. Sometimes you have the right cast, you have the right showrunner, the right writers. It just everything was working about that show. It was a perfect production, and yeah, it's unfortunate. Back to what we were talking about, Yellowstone. Yellowstone is not going in that direction. For those that actually watch Yellowstone, the first season was actually good. The second season was good too. The third season, I think, was sort of reached a high point, and then you got the fourth season. Already in the fourth season, it started going in this more kind of melodrama, soap opera thing. The cowboys were talking about their feelings a little bit too much. Uh, that suddenly they weren't as badass as they used to be. Those early seasons, there was real things going on there. There were some badass people. I really felt that they kind of neutered them and toned it down, and they brought ladies to work with them and all this stuff. I'm not saying ladies can't work there. I'm just saying it looks like a few executive walked in with some notes and told them, listen, this isn't a niche show anymore. Everybody's watching this. You better start checking off some boxes here, making sure it's a little more user friendly. And I don't prefer it personally. I liked how it was at the beginning. Liberty says, so far so good with Fallout. I hope it doesn't get stupid. I hope so too. Yeah, I'm still in the middle of that Fallout. I've just been really swamped, but from what I've seen, I liked what I saw. I am going to certainly watch that. I also want to say thank you to ETN WHVAC that just gave a $10 super chat type of situation on Rumble. You acknowledge me in Rumble. Loving you for that. Thank you. That's really great. Thanks for being here. I'm happy to acknowledge you always, and appreciate any support we can get. That's always great. And speaking of that, we do have a word from our sponsor. So I'm just gonna quickly let's see. We have this. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? I recently saw a video he made and I was shocked. He's in his 80s and he's still kicking butt and working out and staying active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger, can work out longer, and even has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this just by making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/studio or by clicking in the link below in this video. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/studio and click on the link in the description below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it is. So I obviously will add the link to the video below as soon as we're done streaming. I'm going to add it, make sure that it's there, and yeah, Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is the man. Always good to hear what he's up to. Now back to our story. So we were saying that I don't have a lot of hope for Yellowstone. I think that final season is going to be a Game of Thrones situation. It is what it is. And then let me see. Hold on, one says. This is interesting. I'm trying to pull this up. Hopefully you can see it. No. Thanks for all your patience. Sometimes pulling up these articles and talking about them. Jerry Seinfeld says, "Curb Your Enthusiasm." Oh, where it disappeared. Jerry Seinfeld says, "Curb Your Enthusiasm" finale cameo, elevated Seinfeld conclusion. We're in the conversation now. I don't know if you saw the final episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I actually thought that they did something nice there. Basically, talking about shows that ended in a way that not everybody liked. Seinfeld was certainly a very divisive finale for the series. Famously, what happened is that Larry David actually was the co-creator and showrunner for about 7 years on Seinfeld, and after 7 years, he just felt that he didn't have any more in him. He wanted to step back, and I think he kind of wanted the show to already end then. Larry David, what I also saw later throughout the years, he's the kind of guy that he needs time to think of good ideas, and he doesn't like it if he doesn't have the best ideas. He likes writing them down. He can sometimes sit for years writing down ideas, and he only likes to film when he thinks he has enough good material. But network TV doesn't work that way, and with they would have like 20-something episodes of Seinfeld every year, and they'd expect him to continue to churn out these ideas over and over again. And I guess he reached a tipping point at the end of season 7, and he kind of left. What people don't know is the one thing that I'll say is, which I think he did well, is throughout his 7 years there, he basically built a system where he built this writer's room. He built a system of how writers pitch him ideas or how he frames the story, how he works with Jerry. He created a whole kind of infrastructure for how to produce that show. And the second he stepped away, there were already people that were sort of shadowing, working under him for several years, that just everybody kind of stepped up and did their part and tried to make those last 2 seasons work. Now, to be honest, those last 2 seasons, they're not as good as the 7 that came before, for the most part, and I think that Jerry himself knew it, but they weren't terrible either. There were some good episodes there. I think that the Soup Nazi, actually, that one I think was one that came after Larry's departure from people that he's trained. So I guess he's done a lot of good things there. They wanted him to come back for the series finale for Seinfeld. And as it's not a spoiler at this point, you have that whole situation that there's a trial and all the people from Seinfeld end up in jail. And yeah, I mean, it was controversial and not everybody liked it, I guess. I remember myself watching it and I didn't know how to feel about it either. Uh, I didn't know how to feel about it, but I didn't hate it. I mean, how do you really end that show? What could you have done to end it? Maybe maybe there wasn't a great way to end it, and I don't know if that was the best way to end it. But he did whatever he thought was best, and what we had here in this Curb Your Enthusiasm finale is that he had actually Jerry show up in the finale, and there was a similar situation. I mean, it's not a spoiler. There's a similar situation where there's a trial, and it looks like Larry David is going in the exact same route as that Seinfeld show. And then at the end, there's a twist where rather than doing the whole jail thing, there's kind of a change and they actually give it a more of a happy ending. And Seinfeld is along as he comes by and he's the one that helps him out of the mess that he's in. I think that the way they tied it up, it kind of is a nice little epilogue or kind of a wink to the Seinfeld finale that sort of wraps it up in a way that even gives a nicer, more positive context to the finale. So I think when Jerry Seinfeld is now saying that this cameo in the finale really fixed in a way the Seinfeld conclusion, I think that's fair enough. I thought it was pretty well done, and I kind of liked it. There's people that said some things here in the chat that I was really. First of all, another $10 from $10 from Empress NM. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you guys. Matthew Marcillo, Seinfeld was an excellent show, but yes, the finale was not worthy of the overall show, but still enjoyable. When the cast reunited on the Curb Your Enthusiasm, that felt like the real finale. Yes, that was actually very nice when they had that season, I believe it was season 7, where the entire cast of Seinfeld, they basically were on Curb, and they were sort of within Curb making a reunion episode because they mention on that reunion that they don't like the original finale, and that was their way of improving the finale. So I thought that was very well handled. So that was one step to sort of giving a little bit of closure. And the final thing that they did now with Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld, I thought that was well done too. So maybe it was their way of correcting a little bit. He wouldn't be allowed to do that nowadays, Empress says. Maybe Seinfeld, the way that it ended it. George Costanza, this is Matthew Marcillo. George Costanza was the character that was based on Larry David. This is true. George Costanza is based on Larry David, and it's also in a lot of interviews that I've seen, Jason Alexander, that plays Larry David, plays George. He said that he would come up to Larry David and say, "I don't get this character. This is so stupid. This would never happen to anybody." And I think that I actually remember seeing this in an interview. Larry David told him, "Why are you saying that? This is what happened to me. That's why it's in the episode. This actually happened to me." And I think once Jason Alexander understood that Larry David is just basically putting his own kind of stories into these episodes, I don't think he ever again went to him and said, "This is stupid. It would never happen to anybody." I think from that moment, Jason Alexander understood exactly who this character was and just ran with it. And he did a great job. I think that his interpretation is a little different than Larry David. He gives it his own style, and he's a great actor. But Larry David does his thing also well because he's him. Kaiwan Calendar says, yeah, Enthusiasm was good. They're somewhat political the last 2 years of trivia. Confused has been on a show. Is that the last year? I don't know. Was it very political the last? I thought that there were a few things that he did that were seemingly political, but even when he did that, sometimes I do think that Larry David is a guy that pokes fun not only just on one side, but actually on a few different sides. I don't know, I don't know that he does maybe in his real life, but on the show, I think that by highlighting a lot of the hypocrisy that he sees in LA, and kind of pointing that out in a lot of his episodes, even in the last few years, I think that whether he purposely does it or not, or consciously does it or not, he does show a lot of this kind of hypocrisy from these more elitist type. And I think you can see a lot of that in his show. So I've never watched it and thought that he's really, taking too harsh of a political position. But I think that in real life, in more recent interviews, he's become more political. And I'm not sure why. I don't think it benefits anybody. I think that if you're in a situation like that and you have people from every direction liking you and liking your work, to just go out and start, aggressively bashing people, I'm against that. I think that's not a good policy, and I was disappointed when I saw it. But I try to separate, if every actor or creator or artist in Hollywood, if I had to take what they said, if their political opinions, and base that on whether I'd be willing to watch something they're in or not, well, I probably wouldn't watch anything, because most of these people have these type of very extreme views that aren't always exactly what I believe in. But at the same time, those are their views. For me, the problem is entertainment, when they started lecturing us and telling us how to feel and what to do. That's what I don't like. But The fact that there's people in entertainment and they have their own opinions, well, freedom of speech. People can have different views. I don't like it when they start thinking that they're more important than they are, that they suddenly think that they need to lecture you. And interestingly, we've seen a number of actors that I think have started feeling in their pocket that taking these kind of political positions has been bad for them. I don't know if you recently saw, you had Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Dwayne the Rock Johnson for Biden in 2020, whenever it was, he was heavily campaigning and lobbying and telling people and doing all this stuff. And recently, I saw Dwayne the Rock Johnson pop up on Fox News of all places, saying that he's not going to endorse Biden again, and even backpedaling and saying that, you know, in the past he thought that maybe he had a voice and that people wanted to hear his political opinions, but now he's thinking to himself that he shouldn't be using his voice for that. And I think that the reason for it is, one, he noticed that he's a businessman. He looked at his bank account, he spoke with his accountant, he saw that less money was coming in, and people generally don't like it when people take harsh political positions and start lecturing people. If you're a guy that's sort of liked by everybody, why don't you just focus on your craft? It's not like, you know, the fact that he has a lot of muscles and that he, you know, smiles and can punch somebody in the face, it doesn't mean that he needs to tell people who to vote for one way or another, really. So I think that he kind of understood it. Kivo 11961, best voice on late night. I am so humbled by you all. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. This is very, very kind of you. I would highlight, I don't know exactly how, let me see. If I, oh, I think I did it, right? Is this something that people can see now? I hope so. I did something where I think I pinned it. I learned how to pin something. Now let me try this. Okay. Empress NM. Also, I pinned this comment. And also ETN WHVAC, Chuck Norris round kicked the Big Bang and said it, oh, fucker, what kind of alien do you want? So that's another comment, and I'm pinning it also. I hope I know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm pinning it and only I can see it being pinned, or it's being pinned and everybody could see it. If I would hope everybody can, and I'm so thankful again, all of you guys tuning in. It really it means a lot to me, and it's really nice of you. I really mean that. And then now I don't know how to unpin. I'm learning. This is, I guess I'm still, there's a learning curve of me. I mean, never mind. I was gonna say something, but when I thought about it, it sounded kind of dirty, so I'm just gonna keep it myself. There's a lot of pinning going on, but I've unpinned everything now, and I want to thank such great people: Kivo 1961, ETN WHVAC, and Empress NM. Really, really grateful for you guys. Thank you. Oh yeah, we can see it too. You did. I pinned it. Everybody says that I pinned it. So I'm really happy. And then back to where we were you know, looking at our stories. So and obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts. I love that you're interacting with me. Really, really happy. If you have comments, make sure to let me know. So here we have this is an interesting story. It's sort of interesting only because I'm sort of a fan, so it's interesting to me. But they say the Lord of the Rings trilogy is returning to theaters, remastered and extended. That's always good. I think that these are probably going to be very successful. I'm trying to remember when we had such a good trilogy, like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Ever since that trilogy, I'm trying to think, have we had such a good trilogy? And I'm not sure that we have. I feel like that was the last amazing trilogy, one that's not just like, oh well, it's kind of good. Well, you know, no compromises. That trilogy was fantastic, and I absolutely love it. I love the regular versions. More in recent years, I actually went and watched the extended versions. For years, I didn't, and I don't know why I didn't watch the extended ones. The extended ones were even more joyous. It was even more interesting even than the regular ones were, and the regular ones were great. I mean, I think that now I would have to continue to watch the longer versions because I've already seen these extra scenes and I don't want to unsee them. So this is funny. This year will be a big year for Lord of the Rings fans. Prime Video's drama series, The Lord of the Rings: Rings of Power, is expected to release its second season. Yeah, don't tie the original trilogy with Rings of Power. The original trilogy of Peter Jackson films, that is Lord of the Rings. That is the real adaptation of Lord of the Rings. Rings of Power is basically a super expensive CW show with some of the worst writing and acting and directing. It's a show that's one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. And the fact that Amazon spent about $1 billion on it, that's an absolute disgrace. And the thing with that series is with Rings of Power, there's a few things. They did Rings of Power, and shortly after they did that show, The Citadel. Between the Rings of Power and The Citadel, I think that they lost close to $1.5 billion. And then later you see Amazon, they're like, we're laying off all these people. We're laying off people in the studio. We're laying off here. We're laying off. Of course they're laying off. They spent $1.5 billion on crap. Do you understand how many movies and shows you could have made with $1.5 billion? How many good movies and shows? The fact that they spent it on those shows and they're so disappointing is just it's bad for the industry. And even though I personally, if you tell me that somebody like the people that are the captains of the show Rings of Power, if they get fired, I'm happy to see that. But the problem is usually when they say there's people fired, it's not those people that are getting fired. It's probably the people that were doing lighting, that were doing, carrying equipment, that were, preparing food for cast and crew. Those are the people that at the end lose their jobs. And why? Because a few executives in a room thought it was good to take Tolkien and transform it to transition it into the modern world or whatever they call it, modern times, reimagine it as some kind of weird woke thing that nobody wanted to watch. And at the end, people then that actually do work hard, they all lost their jobs. So I actually don't like that. And of course, leave it to the Hollywood Reporter, this shill rag, that they're trying to somehow help Amazon's image here by tying this together. This is not. If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you are not excited about Lord of the Rings of Power getting a second season. The only case that you may be excited is if maybe you're like a YouTuber like myself, and once it comes out, maybe I'll make a few videos and have a good laugh at it. If I even have the patience to do that, that's the only reason that somebody may be happy, that maybe we can tell jokes about it. But it's not that people are excited because there's actual fans for this. And then also Warner Brothers' upcoming anime film, The Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. I actually think that could be maybe okay. I'm okay with that. That I don't know if it'll be good, but I'm open to seeing what that is. That doesn't upset me. It's nice that they sandwiched Rings of Power between the anime and the Peter Jackson movies. What a disgrace. In any case, Kivo was asking, just to be clear, Dread Roberts is usually here. There was some kind of thing that he had that was he couldn't make it for this one, but he will be back here on when is it, on Tuesday? We may still have some guests here. I've just been I've sort of been busy with you guys in the news. We may still have even guests on this stream. Maybe they'll pop in, but regardless, I got you guys here, and I'm here, and everything's gonna be okay. So let me look at some of the comments. Pinning, pegging, it happens. From pinning to extending, very manly talk tonight, guys. Yes, we watch to be entertained, not lectures. See virtue signaling and don't want to hear their politics. They can talk about politics in their echo chamber. That's from Liberty Street 71, Liberty ST 71. Empress NM, March of the Ends, Chef Kiss. Empress and M, there aren't enough tax breaks to compensate for that size of a loss. I agree with you. There's nothing you can do to compensate for the loss that they suffered from Rings of Power. They had to pay hundreds of millions of dollars off the top of the off the top just to get the rights, and then after they got the rights, they actually spent so much on the production and on development and so many stupid things. And you know what the saddest part was? Is that Peter Jackson was basically waiting by the phone. They saw Peter Jackson, they talked to him, they met with him, they said, you know, we'd really love for you to be involved in this show. And he said, I'd love to. I'd love to be involved in this. I have so many great ideas. Let's make a Lord of the Rings series, live action series. I love it. Imagine you have Peter Jackson with that kind of budget from Amazon, and he just wants to make Lord of the Rings. And your reaction is, and this is a real thing, this is what he says, they ghosted him. They basically said that they were going to talk to him, and then they started avoiding him. Imagine you have Lord of the Rings, and you have Peter Jackson trying to call you to see like when are you starting to work on this great show that you're doing together, and you think you're so great that you're going to ghost Peter Jackson and hire the disciples of J.J. Abrams to make the show instead. That has to be, anybody involved in that has to be fired on the spot. If I was like Jeff Bezos or whatever, I would investigate, learn who the people were that did that, and fire them. Fire them, and not only fire them, I do a press conference and explain that I was firing them, that I hope that they never work again. That is like a crime against entertainment. It is absolutely, absolutely unacceptable that Peter Jackson gets sent to voicemail because they figure that he's not good enough to do the Lord of the Rings show. I don't know. That's just a crazy story. It's crazy, but it's true. It's not, I'm not making it up. That is a real story. Oh, in any case, that was the Lord of the Rings. Let's check out some some other stories. I love how none of these articles ever really tell the truth. There's always some kind of weird spin on them. This is an interesting thing. This one. Oh, wait. I think we got a guest. Hey, Nick, can you hear me? You should probably make your microphone not muted. He'll figure it out, hopefully. We have a guest. Nick, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you too. This thing usually works with OBS, but I'm going to do something so that people will see that you're. I want you to feel represented on screen. So just give me 1 second. Oh, actually, you are represented on screen, I guess.
Yeah, but oh, here we go.
This is so great. This is state-of-the-art stuff that's going on here. We're here at the Night Owl. We like to really go state-of-the-art. We're giving you a special exclusive peek into Nick's, I want to say, bathroom.
No, that is actually the other side of my van. But for whatever reason, it won't let me switch to the front camera.
I understand, but I have an idea. Let me see if I can do this. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching, I'm going to show you just some of the technology that you get to witness here on the Night Owl. Let's see if I can pull this off. I can do this. I feel like I can, and you guys just give me a minute. Nick, if you can fix it, you can also try.
Yeah, I don't know why it for some reason it thinks my front camera is off limits.
You know, I got you. I'm going to do something now that you're going to be very impressed with. I promise you that you are going to be very impressed with this. Can you see what I did?
Yes, I can.
So we have
That'll
with
work.
us. We have with us Nick, the Backyard TARDIS. For those of you who don't know Nick, I want to just tell you a bit about this guy. Really, really special guy. First of all, Nick in his town is the local minister at his local church. In addition to that, Nick is also the local locksmith in his town, and he's also an advisor to the sheriff and to the fire department when they have special operations that need his expertise in accessing certain areas, sometimes even kind of dangerous things, which is really cool. In addition to that, he also has a ranch where he raises goats. And in addition to all of that, he also is an expert in science fiction. So and also knows a lot about gaming. So it's really a unique guy. I don't know anybody else like Nick, and he has agreed to make an appearance.
I'm a man of many interests.
A man of many interests, and I really like this TARDIS thing. I think that this looks great.
Yeah, to answer Matthew's question, I'm in the back of my locksmith van. So normally you would see my face and a bunch of podcast stickers on the wall behind me, but you were seeing the wall directly behind my laptop because for some reason it was only letting my rear camera work on my laptop. This is my first time using the Rumble because we use StreamYards for the other stream. So learning this on the fly.
Of course. And yeah, so we were talking about a lot of stuff. Okay, this is now the thing that I was looking at. Thanks for being here, Nick. This is great.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that the people here on the Night Owl are getting to know you, because Nick, in addition to all the good stuff that I told you about, Nick is just such a nice guy. It's like I want to tell you something that a few years ago when I started posting videos, in those early days, and I say this, I'm not just saying it, there were times that probably there was one person watching my my streams or whatever it is that I was doing, and it may have been Nick. There would be a premiere, and it would be me and Nick sitting there. And he's just that kind of guy, and he's always been so supportive and so nice when I do things. And especially when you're starting out and you're trying to do something, and not a lot of people know that you're doing it or even care that somebody actually takes time. And Nick is a very busy man. He does so many things, even in addition to the things that I mentioned that he does, and that he would take time and watch my stuff. I've always really appreciated it. And it's nice for me. I feel like it's almost like it's kind of a celebration that you're able to be with us here today, Nick.
Yeah, and dabbling in content myself, I always find it funny when people show up to the live premiere but don't chat, because it'll be like, oh, 8 people are watching, and you'll sit there, and sometimes I'll just type in hi because nobody's talking. I want them to know I'm actually there. But that when you have small creators, that can mean the world to them. That can be the difference between this is the last video I'm ever going to upload to going on.
Absolutely. And you've always been kind and supportive. And just so you know, it's not only for me that Nick does that. Nick is just such a positive guy when it comes to seeing smaller channels and smaller streams. And when you build audiences and when you make content, he's exactly the type of person that you feel great making content for. He really takes the time to look at it and to even a lot of times give notes and say, hey, you did this, you could have maybe done that. And such great input. And like I said, to have you on here tonight is so great. And I'm happy that people are getting to know you, because you're just a really, really great guy. He has his own channels, which you should check out. I believe they're on YouTube. You have the Backyard TARDIS channel, Backyard TARDIS, and also Adventures in Locksmithing. Great channels. Highly recommend them. You guys should check them out. And then I was looking at this story. I thought maybe you've heard of this movie. I bet it's a movie that you'd like. John Krasinski is doing that If movie.
Yes.
And it's tracking for a promising 40 million plus opening. Now, this is some kind of movie with Ryan Reynolds, and I guess it's a girl that has she and him see imaginary people or like imaginary
It
friends,
it
and
gave me very much the vibes of Monsters Inc., but in live action. Where except instead of like the boogeyman, it's the imaginary friends, and it felt very whimsical. What's weird is this is like one of two movies about invisible imaginary friends coming out at the same time, but I think the other one might be a horror movie.
I agree. I think that there was a weird. Can you hear me now? I feel like there was a
Yeah.
glitch in my laptop. Sometimes I don't know. There was suddenly I heard you like you sounded like you were a robot.
Am I sounding okay now?
No, you're sounding okay now. For a second, it was like blah blah blah.
But
You know what that happens.
yeah, oh yeah, we had
But
that happen a couple of times in the last stream.
I
But
hope that it's not me that's the robot. Maybe it was me that was the robot and not you. But I did hear it. But yeah, this seems like a very interesting movie, and I feel like it's a movie that people aren't talking about a lot now. But there's something about it. I saw a commercial for it. It has Emily Blunt, Steve Carell, Matt Damon, Ryan Reynolds. I feel like this is a movie that's going to possibly be a surprise that people aren't really thinking much about it, but when it comes out, maybe it'll be something different. It's not an existing franchise, it's something original. Maybe it'll have some humor in it, maybe it'll be wholesome and fun. I think people are looking for movies like this, and this could be sort of a summer surprise. I think it comes out this summer, right?
yes, um, or I've actually been seeing a lot of commercials on regular TV, so I think it's coming out pretty quick here.
Let's see. So they're tracking. They think it's going to have 40 million. Some people even think 45 to 50 million opening weekend. I think that would be very,
Yeah,
very impressive if it did
I
that.
think that Ryan Reynolds is, he's been making a lot of great choices, and which he didn't do in his early career.
No, he did the opposite. I feel like he made like bad choice after bad choice back in the day, and then I actually think that it was Deadpool. It was Deadpool that changed his
Probably,
fortunes. After Deadpool, suddenly it was like, oh, Ryan Reynolds is cool. Until Deadpool, it was like Ryan Reynolds is really trying to be cool, but he's not so cool. That was always the feeling that you had around him. And after Deadpool, it's like, oh wait, Ryan Reynolds is kind of cool, and he kind of really leaned into this cynical and kind of silly humor and really finding his comedic voice and style. And I think that from that moment, he really embraced that kind of style that he does, and people responded well to it. I mean, I will say that it's kind of the same shtick over and over again in most of his movies, but it's a shtick that's not unlikable. It's shtick that there could be worse shtick to have, I guess, if you know what I mean. It's
yeah.
it's it's
Well, I
not
mean,
unlikable.
he's an actor that plays himself, but you can have, and sometimes that's a detriment. But then you look at like Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is an actor that plays crazy and everything, but he has some of the most amazing movies, and has a range. And I think Ryan Reynolds has proved in the last couple of years that he can do. He's always comedic, but he has range, and he's done some great action movies. He's done some great rom coms, spy thrillers. He's done kind of the gamut in the last couple of years, and here he's tackling a children's kind of movie, and I think it's going to go great. And I think he's the reverse Will Smith.
Yes, well, he doesn't slap people, so it's already
Well,
a kind of
but see, Will
reversal.
Smith had like all the great decisions at the beginning of his career, and then he just started signing on to every bad movie.
You know what? You're
Uh,
right. That is a reverse Will Smith. I didn't think of it that way. Will
yeah,
Smith, there were times that Will Smith could do no wrong. I mean,
yeah,
the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Independence Day,
Men in
and
Black.
Ben in Black. Every movie that he signed up for was a success. He was successful in it, and he also had this kind of aura around him that's just he's so great and everybody likes him, and it was sort of a worldwide phenomena of how much he was liked. And even his kind of vanilla, silly kind of music, whatever he did, even that kind of did well and was very mainstream. Anything that he basically touched was gold. It all kind of worked out for him. Uh, I'm going to say something, and this is a really, you could say that it's a mean thing to say, but I'm going to tell you that before even the slap or anything like that, I actually, let me see if I can find this. This is actually interesting. Just to show you that I'm sort of, let me see for a second. I'm trying to find this tweet of mine that,
Yes, Wild Wild West was pretty bad, Clay.
look at the people in the chat, see what they're saying, and answer them. But let me try to find this thing that was.
Yeah, it's. I look at like a movie like Wild Wild West, and I feel like they tried to take an existing property and completely change it. Which, Tom Cruise did that with Independence Day around the same time, but a totally different route. And I think they thought that. And if you look at that movie, for as bad as it is, Will Smith is a highlight in it. In fact, a lot of the actors in it are a highlight. It's just a really bad script, a really bad premise. But
so what I wanted to show you is I said this on July 19th, 2020. I said if I was Will Smith, I would have upgraded years ago. Jada looks like the type of woman who would date August Alsina, and he looks like international superstar Will Smith. Enough said. And the reason I said this, not just because I'm a jerk, but because I've always felt that Jada Pinkett Smith does not help Will Smith in any way. I know you could say, well, she's the mother of his kids and all that stuff, and that's very nice, but I'm not saying they should do anything bad for their kids. Their kids are like grown up already. At this point, I don't see the benefit of keeping her around. I feel like all those years, he was the star. He was the one making all the money. And at every point that she could do some annoying thing, that's what she would do. That's my impression. She, if his career is where it is at now, she has a lot to do with it. As far as choosing the movies, I can't tell you if she made him take the bad movies, but I think that she was not a good influence over him. And over the years, I think that it only got worse. That's my opinion.
Yeah. And it's gotten to the point now that when I hear he's attached to a movie, I lose interest in the movie, not because I dislike him as an actor, but because his track record of he agrees to stuff that he shouldn't agree to. And then when you hear about the movies that he turns down to take those roles, that's what seems crazy. It's like, you got to fire an agent or something.
And speaking of that, I wanna actually talk about a message from our sponsor, if you have a second.
Sure.
We live in the most advanced era in human history. So why are millions of Americans more unhealthy and overweight than they've ever been? According to U.S. board-certified physician Dr. Amy Lee, one of the main reasons is 3 harmful foods that are being passed off as health foods all over the country. Because these foods can cause weight gain, clog your digestive tract, deplete your energy, and wreck your skin, they are banned in other countries. Yet shockingly, they're still legal in the U.S., and it's time someone shined a light on what they are. Dr. Amy Lee does just that. The great news is it's easy to help this damage by simply learning which foods to avoid and how to spot them. And by doing so, you can experience easier weight loss, smooth digestion, and vibrant energy. To find out these 3 fake health foods, go to 3harmfulfoods.com/studio. That's the number 3, harmfulfoods.com/studio. Or click on the link in the description below. As I said, I'm going to add those links as soon as we're done. So I suggest you check that out. And back to what we were talking about. Speaking of unhealthy, Will Smith has an unhealthy marriage.
Yes.
And then this thing with Ryan Reynolds, it starts on May 17th. And it's 2 weeks after The Fall Guy opens. I don't know what to tell you about The Fall Guy, but you know what's interesting? Emily Blunt is going to be in The Fall Guy, and she's going to be in this. So she's basically going to be competing with herself at the box office.
The Fall Guy, is that the one about the super spy?
The Fall Guy is the thing that it's a show that used to have Lee Majors or something on TV. And basically they're doing like a reboot, remake, reimagining something with Ryan Gosling.
Hmm.
It's like about a stuntman that like
Oh yes, I did see something about that,
so
and it looks like it's going to be about a stuntman having to save people on the production or something like that.
I feel like when I look at the commercials for this for this thing, it looks to me like it's trying too hard. But it's possible that with all the hype from Barbie that people like Ken and like seeing Ryan Gosling and all this other stuff, it's possible that some people will want to watch it. Uh, that's perfectly fine if they want to watch it. I don't have anything against it. And
Well,
I
I know because I watched a video from Film Theory that they got sponsored by them for this, and they were talking about how it's supposed to the production's supposed to really highlight the stuntmen and put them kind of front and center, and outside of the two main um, actors in the movie, a lot of the supporting cast are supposed to be actual stuntmen. So getting to have some of the limelight.
And by the way, I talked about this before you arrived, but do you think that George Lucas is really coming back to Star Wars? I was saying that I don't think it's going to happen, but even if it did, it's probably somebody promised him something because he supported Iger with those votes.
Right. And, we talked at the time of, what did Iger bribe him with? Was it because of stocks? Was it because of this? But that could be a thing is, he could say, hey, Kathleen Kennedy's about to retire. If you endorse us now, protect us in this battle and do this, we'll hand it back to you to be head of Lucasfilm or something, or bring you on as an advisor or something. What'll be interesting though is if he does that and they let him make the movies that he wanted to make, where he's going all into the microbial universe and with the Wills living inside the Jedi, and a lot of that stuff seemed pretty far out, and he really wanted to make it. But I'd be curious to see. A lot of people hold him in high regard, but I don't think George Lucas coming back is actually a right step for saving Lucasfilm and Star Wars. Because I think he's at a point in his life, if he comes back, he does have a story he wants to tell, but I don't think it's the safe bet. I mean, of course they're running it into the ground as it is, but I think it would disillusion fans who have been very much, well, these 6 films are the makers. You might like some of the EU or the old cartoons that George approved, but everything else isn't canon. If he comes back and is in charge of a movie with starring Rey, I think it would just completely shatter the fandom.
I think this is all. I don't even think there's any fandom left. I think that you just have a bunch of shills, and those shills don't care about what George Lucas does, anyways. I think that the franchise has had so much damage over the past several years that even George Lucas popping up now to give some kind of advice on a show or supposedly running something, I don't know what good it'll do. It's so late at this point. I mean, there were other places that they could have said, okay, we've lost the fans, let's bring George back and see what he can do. But at this point, this is so far gone that to roll him out now, and let's be honest, he's also not 20 years old. I'm not saying that an 80-year-old Lucas can't do anything, but I think that a 70-year-old Lucas could have done better. Meaning, when you get older, I feel like every year, especially in those later years, every year is significant. I'm not saying I'm not saying that he's not competent or he can't do anything. I'm just saying that thinking that he's going to step in and save this franchise now at this point, I don't think that's very realistic. And the only reason I talked about it at the beginning of the stream, the only reason I brought it up is because, like me, we're both. I'm not as excited these days, but I would say that we're both very, we're fans of Star Wars, at least in our past. I know you still are. You're a lot more forgiving than I am. but I personally
Well, I
cannot
mean,
stand.
I pick and choose.
I
You know, I mean,
appreciate.
I'd understand why it wouldn't be, but the Bad Batch right now, I mean, a lot of people, there were some early things in it that gave people warning signs. You know, they have they're protecting a young girl, and there's kind of a little bit of a mystery box around her. But I've liked how that has turned out, and I've liked it's about to come. It's got like 2 episodes left, and I mean, they kill off characters, they have action, and they go into deep force stuff and the darker sides of the Empire, how they disposed of clones after the prequels, and that phasing out of the clones, and it's really good stuff. But then you watch a show like Ahsoka,
Oh,
and
that was
Ahsoka,
terrible.
as someone who's a super fan of a lot of the animated stuff, likes a lot of the books and other stuff all the stuff they were making references to and stuff like that. I got a level of enjoyment out of Ahsoka, but the on-screen presentation was really bad. Some of the dialogue was very bad, and the show felt like half the show was missing. And yet at other times was moving at a snail's pace. The pacing was way off, and so I look at that, and that is a show that there were points during that show where like the episode ended and my nerd self, I was up for hours just, oh, maybe they're going to do this or theory crafting or, you know, oh, they reference this and being super excited. But at the same time, it was a show that I would be embarrassed to tell others that I watched. You know,
Yeah,
if
no, I mean,
if my
listen.
non-nerdy friends turned it on and they're like, really, you're into this? Kind of like enjoying, every now and then there'd be an episode of The Flash on CW that I'd really like, but most of the time, you know, I'd be kind of embarrassed and turn it off as somebody walked in the room.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. It's not that even though I'm sick of Disney and their Star Wars and all that stuff, it's not that I watch things on purpose and want to hate them. I did try that Ahsoka thing. Out of all the things that they had in their arsenal, uh, Ahsoka, I didn't hate the character. It's still there from the Clone Wars and the days that George was still there, and I didn't hate the character. I think that I like Rosario Dawson. I was interested to see what she do with the character. They told her for some reason to make a bitter and miserable face all the time and to walk around like a mopey weirdo. And that in and of itself, I didn't like what they did with her, and everything was very slow. I there's a lot of stuff that Disney did in their era that I didn't like. Surprisingly, Rebels, the animated show, I didn't hate that show. There were parts of that show that I genuinely didn't dislike. I even enjoyed some of those episodes. So if they were going to continue sort of a Rebels situation, I was open to it. But at the time that it came out, I just had so little faith in them. After they messed up the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, I just felt that under this management with these people, and they also ruined The Mandalorian with the season 3. I know you kind of liked it. I couldn't stand it. I felt that, and also Boba Fett, that Book of Boba Fett, everything they did, I felt was a diminishing return. And by the time Ahsoka came along, it's not that I wanted it to be bad. If it would have been good, I would have said, you know what, I enjoy it. But I don't feel that they properly continued, even whatever happened in Rebels. They didn't even properly continue it with Ahsoka. The way they had Ezra Bridger act and Sabine was not in line with the characters we saw on that show. I feel like they made them annoying little dirt bags, and I just didn't like it personally.
Yeah, and you
Oh, and
know,
what's her
like you,
name? The green one. What was I'm forgetting her name.
the
Whoa,
Hera.
Hera. They
Yeah,
completely. I like that character in the animated show, and they managed to make me not like her.
you know, she got hired because she's Ewan's wife,
Yes, I'm sure of it.
and
I'm sure that when he did the deal for Obi-Wan, one of his little things was, "And my wife gets a role on your some other show." And they said, "Sure, Ewan, your wife gets a role." And that's why when they needed him to come out and say that the fans were racist and weep and do all that stuff in his car, he was happy to do it because they scratched his back when he needed it.
yeah, and I think she was a horrible. She was a low light for the show. even her makeup and stuff looked very cheap.
The cheapest cosplay. I felt like I was at a Comic Con, but you know what? I've been to Comic Cons and I've seen people that look better than her. She looked so miserable and she acted miserable, and they ruined the character. A character that actually had this cool appeal. I really liked her in the animated one, and they managed to make me not like her. Same with Ahsoka. Same with Ezra Bridger and Sabine. I don't know how they managed to make all those characters so unlikable. And even they set up all these stories with these plot lines with that guy who was like the sort of Sith guy, uh the guy that the actor passed away,
Yeah.
and
Balin.
Ray, yeah, so yes, Balin. So in any case, they had a good cast. In some cases, that was a good actor. But even they didn't even know what to do with him. He just appeared there in that show. What can you even say that he did on that series? Nothing.
Well, I mean, the sad thing is he died, and it felt like they were building up. So one of the things that you won't even get this from the cartoons. This is from book lore, but if you recall the episode in Clone Wars where they did the father, son, and daughter arc.
Yes, I recall something.
So there's a fourth person to that group, and that's the mother.
Right.
And so the father was immortal. He has with this woman he falls in love with. He has these children. They're immortal. She feels guilty, and it's kind of like a Garden Eden thing. She like takes part of their life force or something to gain that, and in such she becomes a corrupted being with immortality, and she's basically the mother of the Night Sisters. And so that
Right.
planet that they're on is supposed to be the planet where she was imprisoned by the father.
By the time Ahsoka came around, I hadn't watched that Clone Wars in so long that I didn't remember all the details. I do remember.
Well,
I think
but
that.
that's all out of a book. So like all the
Oh,
stuff about
okay.
her, that's out of a book. So you take what you got in that Clone Wars, and that was like a book following up on that episode of Clone Wars
I see what you mean. That's
during the
why I
period
didn't.
that Clone Wars wasn't on the air before Rebels came around. So it's
You know what?
it's one of those things.
To me, you're going really into deep cuts here and a lot of knowledge that most people have. For me, the bottom line is they had a chance to do something cool there, and I think that they fumbled it big time. They had to make an effort to fumble it as badly as they did, but every single character on the screen, they somehow made them, even if in the past I liked them, they made me not like them anymore, and they really
Yeah.
had to make an effort to do that. All the good ingredients were there, and they couldn't pull it off. They couldn't pull off Obi-Wan Kenobi, and like I said, Book of Boba Fett was bad. I don't like what they've done with The Mandalorian. I know you feel differently
Well,
about some of those things, but I just I think they've destroyed
so
that franchise.
I look at like I said, so those deep cuts, those were the things that was bringing me into the show. And I was like, okay, I'm interested in where this is going canon wise. I'm not liking and enjoying the presentation. I'm not enjoying the acting. I'm not enjoying the lightsaber battles. They're all really bad. But I'm interested in the lore implications. But
There's no
what you're
implication. They
talking
don't even
about,
know
like
what the lore
Obi-Wan,
is. Yeah.
with you saw with Obi-Wan, that could have been a slam dunk for him. For all the mistakes they made with the sequel trilogy, they could have taken Obi-Wan, caught the prequel fans back on their
Yes.
side.
I agree with you. Obi-Wan Kenobi was maybe their last point where they could have really done something to bring some fans back. If Obi-Wan Kenobi would have been a slam dunk show that really, really leans into what the fans like and really tries to win them over, that was their last chance. And when you saw that show and it was so stupid, I think that it sort of, there was a feeling that each time there was another step. The Last Jedi was a step that you think Star Wars, they really damaged it. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series, was another moment where you just said, okay, there's no turning back now. And I think that the final blow for anybody who was still hoping for something was that Ahsoka show. Those were the three moments that I really felt that you could tell that they've really, really damaged this franchise. But before we go on, sorry, I wanted.
I was going to say, you have the same thing with Book of Boba Fett, you had in Mandalorian Season 2, when Boba Fett showed up, he kicked butt.
Right.
He was great, and fans were cheering. Everyone was going to Twitter and talking positively about it.
And then they made a show that he's a bum.
End.
He's a stupid idiot. And 5 minutes later, they did that show.
And at the end of Mandalorian, when you see him come in and he kills Bib Fortuna and takes his hands, everyone's like, this is going to be amazing. A spin-off show just about Boba Fett. And once again, they dropped the ball on what was an easy win.
Easy. They just...
And with Mandalorian Season 3, Mandalorian was chief. Now, I'm more forgiving of it, but there's a couple episodes in that were really bad, and they were bad just like the in Book of Boba Fett. No matter what they did good in that show, they were always going to be remembered for the Vespa episode because it was so bad. It would have been better to completely cut that out. The show would have been better.
Just cut out that episode altogether. Remove it. Make it disappear.
And if you got rid of the Lizzo episode,
yes,
of Mando
Lizzo
Season 3,
the fact that Lizzo...
gone, well, it was a step down, but I don't think it wouldn't have been the laughingstock. It really lowered Mandalorian, that had a lot of goodwill, from being, well, it's kind of the only decent thing Disney's making, to now it's utter trash.
By the way, just interesting you should bring it. First of all, I want to say some comments here that people were saying, even some of the things they were saying something to you. So let's see. I'm trying to scroll through here. Matthew Marcillo said Peter Jackson was so ready to go right back into Lord of the Rings and continue the lore, and they shunned him. Unfreaking believable. Yeah, I was talking about that before, that Peter Jackson was supposed to do Rings of Power, was supposed to be involved in it, and then Amazon decided that the best course of action is that when Peter Jackson calls them, they're going to send his calls to voicemail. Until today, I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what you have with Amazon and their team. I just didn't see those comments before. Matthew Marcillo also says... Akivo says 2x4 guy. I don't know what he means. Maybe the fall guy. I don't know what he was talking about.
Maybe he's talking about because you saw the wood behind before my...
Oh, the wood. Yes, that's right. And then Empress, I guess, saw your board and said he looks bored. E. Clay Thompson, LOL. Okay. Matthew Marceau says, hey, Nick, how are you doing, my friend? Are you being held in a shipping container, my man?
We addressed that earlier.
Matthew Marcillo, holy Gravnik, is new TARDIS, love it. Oh, then maybe he liked the picture that I put. Does he stare at goats? Yeah, we saw that one. Tell Nick to Google Locksmith Police Squad scene. You should do that. Nick, great to know you are safe and sound, buddy. Who? Best noise, I don't know what this earbud thing. There are no bad roles when you need to pay the bills. I think that was about Ryan Reynolds. Wild West was pretty bad. It was bad. Empress NM, I tend to think that all the shticks have a lifespan of about 10 years. That's fair enough, unless you're Arnold Schwarzenegger. Also fair enough. Will Smith really started to suffer in his career because of his crazy-ass family, his narcissistic son, weirdo daughter, and toxic wife, Jada Pinkett, whom has been since a different world. I mean, I've never really liked her. Empress NM, could be a traditionalist that simply married the wrong woman. It's possible. And just so you know, I never even understood what happened. Will Smith had that son, Jaden, who was in that Karate Kid movie with Jackie Chan. But today, is it a pronoun type of situation? I don't really know. Is it... Sometimes when I see... I don't know if I don't know what the right term is here, but when I see pictures of his son now, he kind of doesn't look as much as much of a son as he used to.
Yeah. It's, and a lot of these Hollywood actors have kids doing this, and I think some of it's the environment, some of it's when the kids express something, they have everyone around them telling them, this is why it's important that you endorse the kid and you support. And but I think when you go down some of those paths, um, it's part of what makes some of these actors kind of just so crazy and stressed out by all
It's
these
so
topics.
I agree with you. I mean, listen, it's not that it's my business to get into everybody's business. It's just weird because they like to lecture so much, and at the end, you hear about all these actors, considering that there's sort of a small community of very rich people in one specific area that they all live there. The percentage of children they have that have so many pronouns and all this kind of stuff, versus just other places that the more you just look at the people that just seem like normal, regular people, the less you see that there. Whereas the more you go there in their circles, the more you see it. And you have to wonder why it is that you see so much of it there. I mean, it seems like they're like, you know, it seems like it's kind of a trend or something like that. Like they think
Yeah,
it's trendy. Uh, that one of them does it, and then the others they want to do that too. I don't really know. I just know that statistically, it's a strange statistic that so many of them have this situation there. Um, whereas in other places, you may see very little of it. So it's just strange to me.
yeah, yeah, and especially when you have schools exposing children to these ideas before they even hit puberty, and and so you don't really know the difference of what it means to like one gender or the other gender, or one orientation over the other orientation, and they're making these decisions, and then they're getting praised for it, and then if they get older and they feel differently, well, now they've kind of boxed themselves in.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that it's one thing if you're an adult, you can make decisions regarding your life or whatever it is. But I've always felt that really confusing children at a young age, that just doesn't seem like something that I would prefer. But that's my opinion. Let me see some more comments. People were saying it's a remake, The Fall Guy, of the 80s TV show Lee Majors that we were saying. Empress NM, my tinfoil hat wouldn't be surprised if they were getting ready to slot George's wife as KK's replacement. Hey, anything's possible. Matthew Marcillo, this is a Hail Mary attempt by Bob Iger and Disney executive to save the franchise for even George Lucas. Cannot save the IP now. Bob did not even want to use George's sequel trilogy stories. Too late. I agree. DJ Play Nice says, just stopping by to say hey and bump the algorithm. Rock.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Uh, Empress NM, slow, mopey, and bitter. Yup, that's woke in a nutshell. I don't know who I said slow, mopey, and bitter about. Oh,
I think
maybe
it was Ahsoka.
Ahsoka, the show, yeah. Matthew Marcillo, between Obi-Wan and The Mandalorian, Lucasfilm has proven to not want to continue the real storyline for their own interpretation. Rosario Dawson is genuinely a very good actress, bogged down. Yeah, I mean, the thing with Rosario Dawson is she's always a very she has this smile and she has this kind of very nice charm, the kind of thing that you want to see from an actress on screen. She kind of has this, you see her and you like her. And this is
Well,
the first
we
time.
already saw her in Mando season 2, and she was smiling and warm, and
Right, right. She was a little warm there. I think that even there, maybe they tried to tone her down and make her a little more serious, but nothing like what we saw on the Ahsoka show. That she just looks like a miserable weirdo throughout the show. But let's go on. Empress NM. The cartoon characters had a spark of life and joy in them. It didn't translate. That's right. There was something
yep,
about the way they animated them. I was talking about Hera. She was playful in the real one. You like her. I don't know. It was also, let's be honest, the lady that did her voice. I don't know who the actress is that did the voice for Hera on the Rebels. She had a cool voice. They drew her in a cool way, and she had this cool voice. So you automatically kind of connected with her. Whereas the second I saw this lady, she didn't look like her. She didn't sound like her. She didn't act like her. And whoever was directing, I guess Filoni, does not know how to direct live actors. I don't know. He couldn't get these performances out of them.
no, yeah, I think he is a cartoon writer. He's, you know, a lot of people aren't happy with him right now, but I think he was overwhelmed. I think they're putting all this stuff of him being in charge of the greater lore. They're at the same time he's directing something, and because he was directing that, I feel like he took his hands off the pulse of the Mandalorian and his share in that. And then I also think You know, there's something to be said about the difference between production and cartoons and how you can write the story and change the story. Live action is a completely different way how that works. And you know, a lot of it ends up in the editing bay, and you can only work with what you've got. Whereas with animation, if something's not working out, you can change it completely. You're not stuck.
Right, right. I mean,
And
you can't change actors like the way they deliver performances, and I think Dave Filoni, being a guy that comes with a background of so much animation, I think he didn't realize that it's such a big difference, actors and animation. When he directed a few episodes on The Mandalorian under the supervision of Jon Favreau, it was fine. But once you kind of made him the big boss show running that Ahsoka thing, it really showed that he hasn't fully transitioned from being a animation director to a live action
right.
director, exactly for the reasons that you just said.
And when you look at his writing too, like he has great writing when he's the showrunner on like the Clone Wars versus when he's the showrunner. But when he's doing the Clone Wars, one, he has a lot of filler episodes. And that's whether it's Clone Wars, Rebels, The Bad Batch, all the stuff he's done. There's these filler episodes, but there's also he'll drop a little Easter egg for something, kind of like we were talking about Balin in the Ahsoka show. Like it ends, and unfortunately the actor died. It'll never be followed up on. But with the way Lucasfilm has run, it probably was never going to get to be followed up on. Um, he likes to drop in Clone Wars. Some of those later seasons, he was pulling on threads that he set up in the first season
Right.
that he didn't get to like season 6 or 7. Like he's like, oh, I'm gonna address this thing that people thought I was never going to address. It's finally coming into play.
It was a
You
different
can't do
thing.
that with 8 episodes.
No, you can't do it in this situation. It wasn't the right situation for him. The cartoon character, we read that. Matthew Marceau says Ray Stevenson did a very good job as Balin's Scroll, which was probably the most mysterious character, and they ruined him too. I agree that Ray Stevenson was the only one. You could tell sometimes when there's sort of a veteran actor with a lot of experience and a lot of kind of theater and Shakespeare experience. He was a guy that even though they gave him so little to work with, every scene he was in, he really, really made an effort to bring some kind of emotional gravitas to his role. And I feel like he was probably the only bright light within that whole season. And I don't only say this because he passed away. I actually, while I was watching it, thought to myself, this is the only guy here who really is just like surpassing. He's transcending the material that he's been given to really try to create some kind of mysterious character here. But at the end, like you said, the one thing maybe they had going for him, he did pass away. So if they ever wanted to try to do something with him, well, that's gone too. But I still
Well,
feel,
he is coming back in animation next month,
well,
but
uh,
it's in a prequel story.
and who voices him?
I don't know. I just
Uh,
know he. I think because they're doing Elsbeth's backstory in
I
the
don't care.
Tales
You
of
know,
the
I saw
Empire.
that thing. I couldn't care less about her and her stupid backstory. I hope I never see her again. If I never see that character again, that'll be too soon, or whatever the saying is. I couldn't care less
See,
about her. Elsbeth,
see, I
couldn't
enjoyed her
care less.
character in that,
I
but
think that she should disappear off the face of the earth. That's my personal opinion. But if you like her, it's okay, Nick. I mean, we can't all
yeah,
like the same things. But back to the comments. Rida Ibn Muhammad says, totally fumbled it. Empress and M says, nope, had to focus on Leia and break the lore. That's the Obi-Wan show, I guess. Empress and M, young children need some kind of anchor or structure, grounding, endless enabling. Well, we see the result now. I agree with all of that. And on such a positive note, we also have a great message from one of our sponsors here. So,
okay.
if your dog's coat is dull, energy low, itchy, ears are red, if their breath or poop smells very bad, if they're just not doing as well, these can be warning signs of bad health. The first thing we want to look at is nutrition. Basically, the dog food makers take healthy ingredients and pressure cook them at a super high temperature. And when it comes out the other end, you've got this brown mush. The food is supposed to last for 2 or 3 years on the shelf, but that means some pretty bad stuff has gotten into the food to make it last that long. Studies show that this process can even lead to serious conditions. Dr. Gary Richter has helped thousands of dogs with issues that seemed impossible to go away. He's made a video to alert you every pet owner must know, and you can watch and learn more about it at ultimatedoghealth.com/studio. It's linked at the bottom of this video. Make sure to go to ultimatedoghealth.com/studio or click on the link in the description box below. I will, again, put that link right when we're done. And also, you have it here on this banner. So obviously, check this out. And
Always important to take care of the doggos.
Always important. And speaking of dogs, it looks like The Equalizer has been renewed for a 5th season at CBS. Now, when I say The Equalizer here, I use that term very loosely.
I thought it was already canceled.
You know, I wish it was. I don't even know how this series even exists. First of all, The Equalizer back in the day was this kind of elderly white British male in the 80s. That was a decent show. I'm familiar with the original series. Most people aren't. But when they decided that they're making a remake and that it had Denzel Washington in it, I really like Denzel Washington. So I was very curious as to what their modern kind of take would be. And thankfully, they did something really cool with it. So I enjoyed that first Equalizer movie. I thought the second one was okay, and the third one was pretty good as well. I liked the first one the best, then the third one, then the second one. But in the midst of all of it, when we were waiting to see if they'll do like a third Equalizer with Denzel Washington, for some reason, they made a series called The Equalizer with Queen Latifah at CBS. And I watched like an episode of that just out of sheer curiosity, and it was laughably bad. And the fact that this is going on its 5th season and it got a renewal, I don't understand how. I mean, not to be mean, are you looking at this picture now?
Yeah, I am. And, so I'm somebody who watches a lot of CBS.
Right. She doesn't look to me like The Equalizer. I'm sorry. I know. I'm a terrible person. I don't have anything personal.
No.
I don't have anything against Queen Latifah. I really don't have anything against her. She does not seem like The Equalizer to me. But again, I guess most of these type of shows would get canceled after 5 minutes. I'm really surprised that this had enough of an audience that they basically renewed it for a 5th season. I don't know one person that watches this. This to me is not The Equalizer, but at the same time, like out of all those weird things that they reverse, the man with a woman, do all these weird swaps, this is one that I guess people somehow watched. I don't know why, but somebody's watching it.
Yeah, well, me and my wife, we like our crime shows, so we watch, Blue Bloods, we watch all the NCIS. Well, not anymore. We haven't watched the 2 most recent shows. We stopped watching them. The different FBIs. Those are all big CBS shows. And something that was annoying me last year, the year before, for like 2 or 3 years of the beginning of that show, is it was every commercial break was an Equalizer commercial. And it was just like you couldn't get through a show without constantly seeing advertisements for this show. And it's just one of those things. It's not believable. And it's not that she couldn't play a detective. She couldn't play, and I haven't watched the show to see how much, but when I think of The Equalizer, I think of somebody who
it's a badass person that kicks ass. I don't think that she fits the bill. I don't have anything against her. I honestly say, I think that there's a lot of kind of celebrities or whatever out there that are kind of unlikable or annoying or like they like get on my nerves. I don't feel that way about her. I don't dislike her, but I still, with all of that being said, do not think that she's. I tried to watch it. I watched it. I think that the only reason this thing keeps getting renewed is I think that there's a likability factor and maybe people that just generally like her and maybe they're not so focused on The
Well,
Equalizer. They're just like, oh, it's kind of a weird detective show with her or whatever it is, and they're just like, whatever. I mean, I don't buy it. I don't
right.
think her being in this like military thing and holding the gun, it is ridiculous. And I
Now
watched
you
that
want to know
episode.
something that's
Yeah,
more
go on.
ridiculous?
What?
And I think that one's NBC. But have you watched The Rookie
The
with
Rookie, is
Nathan
that
Fillion?
Nathan Fillion, that he goes
Yeah.
back and he's a rookie? I watched that, like, maybe one episode. Some people like that show. I don't dislike Nathan Fillion, but I tried to watch that show and I couldn't get into it personally.
So I really like that show. They had one season where they had um, what's his name that played Superman in Superman Returns. Um, in 2020, they had him come on to play the racist cop for the year, and it was all just a bunch of cops constantly talking about how they stand with defunding the police. And I was like, I can't with this show. But they decided they needed to do a spinoff, and so they did the Rookie FBI
I remember. I
edition.
remember. I saw, actually, I didn't watch it, but I remember seeing trailers for it. And I'm like, they're spinning off that dumb thing.
And so the Rookie FBI follows a retired school teacher who is a heavy set black woman. And when
Oh,
I mean heavy set, I mean she's like
Nell Carter.
um she's wearing a 6D bra, you know,
I mean,
and
listen.
she's running down and chasing guys, and it's like you can't watch it. It just looks it looks
Right. I
bad.
mean, listen, the thing is, I also want to make something clear. It's not that I weigh like 1 pound and I'm a,
Oh, I am
uh,
a fat guy.
I,
I am an incredibly fat guy. You would
but
not.
I wouldn't make a show where I'm the guy that's like the top guy running after all the criminals. I wouldn't do that because it would look kind of stupid. So I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
Uh,
it
it,
would be like me playing James Bond.
right. I mean,
Nobody
listen.
would go see that.
Okay, if there was a lot of money on the line, I would go to the gym. I'd go on a
Yeah,
diet. I try my best to, like, to fit the part as best as possible. Even if I did all of that between you and me, I still wouldn't be the right casting for that whole situation. But these ladies, they're not right for these roles. These specific ladies,
well,
I
the
just don't
lady in
buy
that
it.
show, if she went into the gym and she worked out and stuff, she would look like Queen Latifah in this show. That's it's like if Queen Latifah let herself go, and I'm not trying to be mean here. Like I'm heavy set. I have nothing problem with heavy set, but it was like
No, but you have to
they,
also be realistic. It's
yeah,
funny. It's funny that you should bring that up. That recently there was a situation that people were upset, apparently, trying to cancel Sylvester Stallone, because what happened
yeah,
was that he was on the set of his show Tulsa King, and there was a scene that there were supposed to be background extras, and apparently this was a scene where it was at a club or something that was like a young setting, so there were supposed to be young women and men. And Sylvester Stallone arrives. He looks at the extras, and according to what somebody says, and there's no verification that he actually said it, somebody thought that he told the director that, the people that they brought for the extras, instead of being young women, that they were actually like middle-aged fatzos. The truth is, and then I guess people were very offended that he would say such a thing, even though there's no proof that he actually said it. But even if he did, I was saying that let's just say that he went out and told the director, we were supposed to have extras that were like young women in their 20s. Why are there a bunch of old fatzos here? I was, saying that if you're an old fatso, you're an old fatso. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to be the thing that's going to destroy your life. If Sylvester Stallone is expecting to see 10 young women that are 20, and there's a bunch of middle-aged men with like big bellies like standing next to him, and it's not really what's supposed to be in that scene. I think that, like, the fact that like they're having meltdowns or whatever it is, it's kind of ridiculous to me.
oh yeah. I mean, um, it's silly. It's like I'm a heavy set guy. I went and did a job for a preschool, and this little girl comes and she starts tugging on my shirt, and she's, "Hey, Mister," and I go, "Yeah, what's that? And I thought she wanted to show me something, and she's like, are you aware that you're very fat? And I watched the teacher that was watching him was some young 20 something, and like she went ghost white. She was freaking out, apologizing. She put this kid I'm like, it's fine, it's fine. I go, yeah, I'm aware I'm fat. And I laughed and smiled it off. Like, but this teacher was like just thought like I was gonna somehow contact the authorities and shut the whole facility down over what this kid
Right.
said.
I'll tell you what, that I have friends that I've known for many years, and if they see me, and I have different times that sometimes maybe I gain a few pounds, sometimes maybe I lose a few pounds. It depends on certain things. Sometimes you lose track. Sometimes it's a seasonal thing. And I remember that a number of years ago, after I was gaining some weight, like an old friend of mine saw me and he was like, "Oh, you gained weight." And he even said, "Oh, like kind of look, you got fat, you got this, you got that." I didn't get offended. I kind of laughed and I said, "You know what? You're right. I put on a few pounds." And then I actually lost some weight, and I saw the same friend like a year later. And he said to me, "Hey, you know what? You lost a lot of weight. Like, this really looks good. Like, it's great that you did that." And I'm like, "Great." People just say whatever they think, and sometimes there's an honest element to it. I mean, I don't need people to tell me that I weigh like 20 pounds. It's stupid. I don't need people to say that. And the fact that people were on that set and they think that Stallone thought that they were fat, maybe they were fat.
Yeah,
you, you
and
know
and
yeah, if
that
you're
is
if
what
you're a
it is.
middle-aged man with a big belly, you know that you're a middle-aged man with a big belly. There's really no reason to have a meltdown about it.
Now, going back to the Equalizer, Matthew in the chat brought out that Queen Latifah has actually lost a lot of weight, and she's looking very good in New Year's, and I agree. She does look good. She actually looks thinner than she had
No,
maybe
good for
5-10 years
good
ago.
for her. I don't dislike her. I don't dislike her, and I agree with him, and I agree with you. She's made an effort. I don't dislike her. Still, when I watched that show and I saw like a thing that she's like battling a goon or something, and I didn't buy it. To me, it looked really, really
Well,
bad.
and there's a difference between women who look good. There's a difference between looking good and attractive and looking athletic. And um, you know, when you look at Scarlett Johansson doing the stuff as Black Widow, there's a bit of believability to it. She's super skinny, fit, and trim, and she's younger. And
And she
Queen
looks nice.
Latifah, it's the idea of just her being, um,
She was good. She
in
went
that
to the gym.
action role.
Listen, Scarlett Johansson, I want to tell you something. That years ago, this is a true story. Years ago, I was in New York and she was shooting a movie, and this was before she did all that Avengers stuff. And everybody was like, "Oh, Scarlett Johansson, you're Scarlett Johansson." She wasn't as known, but she was somewhat known. And then, like, I stood there, and she walked out, and she walked by me. And I don't know if it's for this movie. She was very short. She was actually a bit overweight. There was nothing really very interesting. If I wouldn't have known she was Scarlett Johansson, she would have just walked by me. Wouldn't have even looked in her direction. But then she got that Avengers thing, and she started going to the gym every day for several hours and doing all of this like training. And man, by the time she got to those Avengers movies, she looked fantastic. So yeah, I mean, even Scarlett Johansson had to put in the work and the effort for her to be like that. It's not something that you snap your fingers. At the same time, when you're getting paid like $10 million a movie, it makes sense that you'd go to the gym a lot and look great. I mean, that's kind of what you're getting paid for in a way.
Well, and like here's the thing with like Queen Latifah, like if you didn't have her as the Equalizer, if you had her as a detective,
Maybe
just
it
a
would be
standard
okay.
detective,
Yeah, maybe
yeah,
as a
because
detective.
I work with detectives. You know what? There's a lot of fat
A lot
detectives.
of fat thumbs. Yeah, no, that's fine. She could have been a detective. I could have been okay with that. The Equalizer is like is a step above. I just think that like I said, when I saw that her battling some guy, whatever, I just didn't buy it. But let's look at some of
Right.
these comments. I want to
You
look
don't
at
want her acting like she's Walker, Texas Ranger.
Right. Empress NM says, "How could this get renewed?" I don't know, Empress NM. Matthew Marcillo, do not get me wrong. I like Queen Latifah, but yeah, wrong for the character. I agree. Empress NM, Queen Latifah is awesome in her own right. She's no action star. I agree. RSN 40, are we sure it's getting ratings? I mean, it must be. CBS doesn't just renew stuff. There must be at least a group of people that are willing to watch it for whatever reasons. I think that probably the likability of Queen Latifah is a factor here. And there's some people
Yeah.
that like her and are willing to watch her. I even said that I don't dislike her. It's just that I don't think she's right for this. The cheese factor says it doesn't add up. Matthew Marcillo, Queen Latifah is very likable and down to earth with great sense of humor. She's not an action star, I agree. Matthew Marcillo, Brandon Ruth, Nick, whom was in Superman Returns. I don't know in what context that is. E. Clay Thomason.
I was trying to remember his name for when I was talking about the rookie.
Oh, okay, the rookie. Okay, I got you. E. Clay Thomason. She do a lot of action in the show, or she just solves crime? No, I think for the episode I saw, she was like doing action. She was like beating somebody up. I really didn't buy it. Matthew Marcillo, Queen Latifah actually did lose weight for in recent years, and she looks very pretty. I don't have an issue with that. I again
I
said
do think she looks very pretty.
I do think she has a likability about her, and I think that her staying on the slimmer side definitely complements her. I don't dislike her, and she's pleasant, even like her look or whatever it is. I think she's an overall pleasant-looking person. I don't have any issue with her. I just don't think she's right for this role. Matthew Marcillo, the casting director, unfortunately, was a woke SJW who did not do her job correctly. That's possible. Edge of Time. Greetings from the Edge of Time. Greetings, Mr. Edge of Time. Thank you for being here. I'm assuming you're a Mr. Maybe you're a Mrs. or a theirs or whatever. Matthew Marcillo, good evening. I'm just kidding. I assume that you're a Mr. Matthew Marcillo, good evening, Edge of Time. How are you doing? Sir, here. How are you doing, sir? So it's a sir. Somebody knows him. Love your avatar, your name, very epic sounding. Edge of Time, you're very kind. Matthew Marcel, no problem. Glad you're here with us. Edge of Time, I'm no punisher. Queen Latifah should be a judge's bench or like an Ironside show, a shop owner. But in this day and age where Rachel Ziegler is action star of the year, shakes head. Yeah, I don't know how Rachel Ziegler got action star of the year. Somebody paid off somebody for that to happen because she's no action star, at least not in my book. But I think we're almost we kind of got through a lot of them. I always favor the crazies like Howling Mad Murdoch and Jim from Taxi. Yeah, sure. Howling Mad Murdoch was great. Matthew Marcillo, Edge of Time. Those are some of my favorite characters from TV. God bless Dwight Schultz and Christopher Lloyd. Love those guys. True. Edge of Time wasn't Jennifer Garner the first female action hero. No, it was Jennifer Lawrence. Edge of Time. Jennifer Lawrence is the first action star ever. At least she says that she was. Matthew Marcillo, oh no, you are thinking of Jennifer Lawrence. She was the first action female hero, but Jennifer Garner was pretty good as Elektra. Okay, so we got through all of those. And,
Okay.
these shows on CBS, they're so generic, some of them. I've stopped. I used to watch NCIS as kind of a guilty pleasure back in the day when it
Yeah.
still had Mark Harmon and it had Michael Weatherly and they got a nice cast there, a nice ensemble cast. But these days, I just feel like they're so far from what that show used to be that I can't really. I kind of lost
Me,
interest in it.
me and my wife still watch a lot of them. I've really liked the FBI. That one has been really good. But Blue Bloods. Blue Bloods, I think, is far and beyond one of the best ones on there. Especially for
With Tom Selleck.
yes. What I love about it is cop centric, and every week, every member of the family is a different level of cops, and they go into all the issues that are hot topics right now that a lot of these other shows are bending over backwards to have the cops take the side of the people and the defund of the police and all that, but one of the things I love about Blue Buds is it takes all these issues and it shows both sides. And it shows why the cops do the things the cops do and how their hands are tied. And what I love is you have Tom Selleck playing the commissioner and he's just, looking at everything, and he's, you know, if I do this, you're saying do better, do this. He says, if I do that, this is what's going to happen. I can't let that happen. What I'm doing, it's not perfect, but I can't let this happen. And then they kind of have the give or take, and then he always kind of cleverly comes up with a solution, but it's never perfect. It's never what the world, people in the world are demanding. And I like that because it helps show both perspectives.
I understand. I think that from what I remember on that show, it's not an overly. There's a bunch of dudes sitting at a table doing some police business. There's a few women there too. I've always felt that that show. It's a little less. Sorry, I hate that I have to use this word all the time. I've never felt it's overly woke. It's sort of a pretty decent show, Blue Bloods. I've seen episodes of that. I don't watch it religiously, but sometimes I'm with family or some members that like to watch that show, and I've run into different episodes. If somebody's watching it and like we're sitting and there's sort of a gathering and maybe somebody's put it on in the background, I don't hate it. It's not terrible.
Yeah.
I don't dislike Tom Selleck. He's I like Tom Selleck. He hasn't done anything bad to me. He's Magnum PI. But I have this article that I thought was interesting, and I want to share it with you. That right now it says Hollywood contraction hits Star TV packages. It's a head scratcher. This is so stupid. It's from Deadline that we keep seeing all these kind of media spins that they don't want to say the truth. I mean, some of it it has nothing to do with the actors. All of these streaming services, they overspent. They did a lot of stupid things. They lost a lot of money. And now, what maybe 5 years ago, all these kind of streamers would jump on all these kind of packages and pay a ton of money for all of these actors and big names and shows. Now, a lot of them are a lot more cautious because they're not really getting return on all this spending. It turns out that this whole streaming experiment has caused a lot of companies to lose a lot of money, and they're
Yeah.
just not as interested. The other thing is that I still think that, and this is the part of these Deadline and the kind of shill magazines that they're saying it's a head scratcher. I also think that a lot of these big shows that cost a lot of money, rather than appealing to a wide audience, most of them over the past 5 years have also been very agenda driven, very over political, and that certainly didn't help. Yes, some of it is that it was an oversaturation of the market and all that, but it didn't help that so many of these shows were laughably political in a way that just alienated people, that they became the butt of people's jokes. So, even ones that maybe could have been good weren't that good, and that certainly played a role. Not to mention that at the end they did all these strikes and unions and this and that, amongst them already alienating audiences and with all their lecturing and their politics. And now they're sitting around, they're like, oh, why aren't we getting work? And it's like, yeah, that's what happens. You're destroying your own industry. You've been doing it for a number of years, all across the board, whether on a business end or on a political end or all those things together. And now they're sitting around. They can't believe it. Where's the money? The money is dried up. And I certainly believe it. I feel like people like us have been saying this for a long time. And now it's like, this has been, so they're quoting somebody, this has been such a head scratcher, one agent said about the situation. Why is it a head scratcher? You've ruined the industry. You've done every stupid thing that you could have done. This shouldn't be a head scratcher. This should be that this is what happens when you don't do good business.
Yeah.
So,
well, and it's interesting. I recently listened to a roundtable of writers from a convention, and they were saying that now that writer strike was over, they were kind of talking about the state of the industry, and these were seasoned writers who have wrote on past shows that have been struggling in recent years to get work, and they said that streaming. Initially, they thought it was the savior for them of having to. They had battled for years because they'd all done those, 22 episodes a year shows. These are people who worked on Sarah Chronicles, Star Trek, different things back in its heyday, and they loved being able to do the shows where you have this short, like 8-episode season, all that. But one of the things that they mentioned is that the way streaming services look at a show and its importance is completely different than a regular show. They don't even care if at the end the show gets good ratings, all they care about is it has enough buzz to get enough people to sign up. And they said, even when a show is successful and we get the metrics and they say the show is good, if it's not amazing to put them on the map, the show gets canceled, even if it's pulling in numbers that would normally be good for TV. And they also talked about, just the quotas, though, that they gotta fill these quotas and they've got to tick these boxes and all these things that tell them that. But so all the freedoms that they thought they were going to have, now they don't have it. And they said that probably the best thing that can happen right now is that a lot of these streaming services are trying to go back to a more TV formula with commercials where viewership will matter and shows will be judged more on merit rather than how many people they were able to hoodwink into subscribing at the beginning of the show.
And speaking of merit, we have a word from a sponsor. Hold on. I'm trying to look at something. Give me a second. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Here we go. The key to having a healthy weight, more energy, and a long, healthy life comes down to a specific switch you can flip in your body to flush out unnecessary calories. Dr. Stephen Gundry is calling this caloric bypass, and by activating this specific process in your body, he's seen thousands of people dramatically improve their health, even at age 50 and beyond. This includes losing weight, getting tons more energy, and returning to the good health once they simply did this. Dr. Gundry has lost 70 pounds himself using his research and has kept the weight off for over 20 years and counting. His digestive issues are gone, his health is fantastic, and he feels younger and healthier today than he did in his 40s. His video has been watched by over 20 million people to date, and you can watch and learn more about it at thehealthyfat.com/studio. It's linked at the bottom of this video, but he'll teach you exactly how he has kept his weight off for free at thehealthyfat.com/studio. So I'm also going to link it after we end, but you can also see the link here on the screen. So thank you for that. And speaking of trimming the fat, Hollywood apparently is not so keen on any of these packages now with all these stars and all this money, and less of them are getting picked up because the streamers have just spent too much money, and they know that it's here. They're saying there's no return on investment. There's not a good return on investment. But here's a little tidbit, and this is a lot of times in these kind of deadline magazines, these kind of shill media rags, that they say something, but they really minimize. This comment here means everything. According to the rep, probably factoring in that newfound resistance is the massive success of a lower-cost acquisition like Suits, which thoroughly outperformed star-driven series that cost $100 million per season, which has made streamers even more reluctant to spend on big packages. Now, when all those strikes happened with the writers and the actors and the directors and all that stuff, I think a lot of people like us knew that they were only damaging themselves, that they were already annoying to begin with, and this is only going to hurt their bottom line. And while they were doing all of that, a lot of streamers like Netflix and all these different places started showing older shows. Now, older shows, and this is something that Deadline won't say, are not as woke. Basically, if you watch the show Suits, that has like a lot of stuff in it that today already, if you'd make the show, 70% of what you would see there, they'd probably erase, and they'd say that it's offensive and that there's not enough this, there's not enough DEI, there's not this, there's not that. All these networks, they just needed something to show. They started showing older stuff. And what do you know? I mean, all this older stuff suddenly started appealing to people. People were watching shows from like 10 years earlier. And one has to wonder why, and I've read other articles, why is it that people are enjoying watching things from like 7, 10, 15 years ago, more than the things that are coming out now. It's very simple that I think that those things were still prior to this new era that they started shoving all those things forcefully. And the weird thing is that a lot of those shows that I'm mentioning now, they actually had a lot of diversity in it, and it was done much more organically, and it didn't annoy people. I feel like everything was heading in a pretty good direction, but that wasn't good for some reason, and they wanted to make this whole thing about the anti-patriarchy and the weird gender stuff and the anti-male and the anti-white people and all that stuff. And at the end, that is influencing the bottom line somewhere, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at so in 2020, Netflix, they don't release numbers, but every now and then they will kind of release little tidbits. And in 2020, it was really interesting that the most viewed genre show was not like Stranger Things or anything like that. It was Star Trek Voyager. In 2023, it was Star Trek Enterprise. So this is, even though they have like hit programming shows on there that are new things, these older shows, from decades ago are what are trending and people are catching up to. And
I know you hate Enterprise. See, now you may like stuff that's Star Wars that I don't like, but Enterprise, I know you're an anti-Enterprise person. I absolutely love Star Trek Enterprise. I'm not afraid to tell you that I absolutely love that show. It's a great show, and I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah. Well, we can differentiate on that, but you know what? It was wonderfully cast. I love the cast. And
It's important. Having a good cast is important. I really like the cast of that show. You know what? You're right. The cast was great, and that does speak to me. I like a good cast on a show, and they had a good chemistry between them. I liked seeing those actors interact with each other. I'll give you something. I'm not saying that everything was perfect about that show. I know how Star Trek is important to you and how we could go through things and you could point out things that maybe they weren't correct with canon or maybe they could have done things differently. But I will also say a lot of shows need a few seasons to find their footing. And I do feel that
Correct.
Enterprise was heading in a good direction. And if you would have given it 3 more seasons, I think that it had a lot to offer, in my opinion.
I will 100% concede that, because if you look at the first 3 seasons, the first 3 seasons of Voyager is very rough.
Yeah, I still haven't been able to overcome that. That's the only show that I started watching.
I gotta give you a list of some episodes to get to.
But even
Deep
Space Nine wasn't fantastic from episode 1. Even that took time to find its footing.
Deep Space Nine was one where it wasn't awful, but it
wasn't awful, but
it wasn't great. And then if you look at TNG, which everybody praises, I'm right now in the middle of season 2. In season 1 and 2, there are some downright awful episodes.
There's some stinkers there, but I think more so in season 1. Season 2 started finding its footing, but I think that season 3 it really started riding that wave and doing really finding its footing there. There was an improvement from season 2 to after season 1, but yes, I agree with you. It's not that right away from day 1 it was a grand slam out of the park. I think that Enterprise, they kind of weren't sure what they were doing, and in addition, it looks like there was a lot of pressure from the network to do different things. So I just feel like they really didn't give them the time and space to sort of, no pun intended, but to really build something. I felt that 4th season did some interesting things. I was interested in seeing what more they would do. Like, I think 5, 6, and 7, if you would have given them those seasons, I think that we could have seen something really great from Enterprise. But
I think so too. And another thing that I will say about this, because I saw this with the Stargate franchise with the last show that was in that. You had the same basic team that started on the first season of the Next Generation, the people who were overseeing it. They worked all through DS9, Voyager, and then to Enterprise. By the time they got to Enterprise, they were tired. They were out of ideas. And I think they needed a break, and because they didn't get a break, the show suffered a little bit from it in writing. Um, Doing a prequel is hard, and I really do think that just as the show was starting to catch its legs, it was and Voyager. A lot of what makes the first couple of seasons of that rough is because of studio interference. They were wanting to do a show much more like DS9, where it was um, a continuing story, and DS9 was not doing well in ratings at the time compared to the Next Generation, and so the studio wanted it to be TNG light. They wanted it. Oh, yeah, it's all about these people who were part of two crews and they're out in the middle of nowhere on their own, and it's going to be the struggle and mesh and all that, which all the writers wanted to get around. In the studio's like, nope, they need to be the perfect crew that all get along and are happy, and they go and discover life every week. And those are two completely different shows, and it took quite a while for them to find the balance.
I agree. I agree. Let's look at a few of these things that we were being told in the chat. I don't want to miss some of these things.
Yep.
I feel like we skipped a lot of them. Okay. I saw all of Curb Your Enthusiasm like 15 years ago. This is from Edge of Time. I saw all of Curb Your Enthusiasm like 15 years ago. Sounds like I should give it another whirl. Well, I mean, they've been making a lot of Curb since that. They've been making it for like 20 years. So perhaps you saw the first earlier seasons, but there's definitely a lot to watch now. Edge of Time for sure. Joshua Calkins, I wanted Gary Sinise's to be great, but could not get into it. Is that the CSI New York one? There was one like that he had, but I don't know if that's the one Joshua Calkins is referring to.
Say it again?
He's Joshua Calkins says that he wanted Gary Sinise's show to be great, but he couldn't get into it. I feel like he's talking about CSI New York because I don't remember anything else that Gary Sinise is in. Has he been any kind of FBI or any of those shows that you watch, like any of those cop dramas? I only remember him from CSI New York.
So
he's Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump. Doesn't ring a bell?
Oh, yeah, that's got to be CSI. He's not in any of the other...
no, he was in CSI New York. I think that's what Joshua Calkins meant. I didn't love that show either. Edge of Time, best Daredevil ever. Joshua Calkins, Sullick's daughter and granddaughter sucked. Ruined it for me.
The granddaughter, yes. They're talking about Blue Bloods. But the daughter, I liked that she brought a different perspective to the table. She argued. Sometimes she caved. Sometimes they caved. And that is what I was saying about the show, giving all the perspectives and not backing down or like saying this perspective is wrong, and that's what made the show kind of refreshing. Is it helped people, it humanized people. It didn't make anybody you're the horrible woke person, or you're the conservative bigot. Everybody came in with their opinions. They expressed why they had their opinions, and then they realize the world's not perfect, and they come to a compromise.
It seemed like it was trying to do a show that represents more what people talk about at the dinner table in a family, and not just that they're all of one political opinion. I agree with you. Joshua Calkins' Blue Bloods was squandered and failed. Matthew Marcillo, the best scenes in Blue Bloods are the family's dinner, which really grounds the show in reality. Exactly what you were saying, Nick, and actually what I was saying. So I agree with you, Matthew Marcillo. Joshua Calkins, Tom was solid. Yes, Tom is always solid. Empress NM, contraction hits, Shequalizer renewed. Shequalizer, that's funny. Joshua Calkins, haha, yeah. Tornadoes, hi, just made it. Good to see you, your Tornadoes. Joshua Calkins, sup. Empress NM, they unwittingly embrace their own entropy. That's the industry that they did all those strikes and all those demands and all the things, and at the end, now they don't have work. Joshua Calkins, thumbs up. E. Clay Thomason, do you think television will end up dying like radio did? There's so many technologies and so many different things today that I don't know if it'll die, but we keep shifting around and changing. Now, I want to say something that these days, when you look at those kind of Apple Vision Pro and Meta Oculus Quest or whatever they're called, Meta Quest, all those virtual reality glasses, I think that today those models are still very big and clunky. But I think that there will come a time where these things will be a lot lighter, a lot thinner, and a lot like the battery is going to last a long time. And it'll almost be like light, like putting on a pair of glasses. And I think at that point, you're going to be introduced to different type of entertainment that maybe you're watching a movie, but you're in the movie. You know what I mean? You're walking around. They're also Disney. They've created their Imagineers have actually patented and created some kind of thing where you're. It's like a it's like in Star Trek, the Next Generation, the holopad, or whatever it is. Like you're walking, and it goes in whatever direction you're going, as if you can just in a little circle that you're walking on. It keeps moving like a treadmill, but in the direction you're going. So in the future, if they manage to perfect that, along with these glasses that are light and breezy, you may be in a movie. You may be in a situation that like you're watching a movie that's almost like really playing out in real time, and you're sort of a person within actually walking on the street or watching it from different angles. There's so many things with technology that are bound to happen, not to mention all this AI stuff and all the different things that are happening that I don't know if radio TV will die completely, but I think that things are changing, and at the end it's not unlikely to think that it could also affect those mediums. That's just my
Yeah,
two
and I
cents.
think it'll be a medium that kind of like the movie theater preceded television and the arcade home video games. I think it's something that practically will be in more of a theme park, uh, place to go because it's an expensive thing to get into right now. And I think prior to COVID, a lot of the theme parks were really embracing wearable glasses for rides to enhance rides into much more interesting experiences. And some of that is after COVID. Uh, they're kind of getting away from that, but I think it'll come back. Um, it's just I think the technology is there. It's definitely going to progress, but I also think that what is traditional, um, podcasts now completely have taken over talk radio,
Right.
and YouTube is slowly becoming, um, it's garnering more viewership than the network cable TV shows.
Right, and they didn't help themselves, all these network things. I mean, it was a combination of a lot of different things. One, you could say it was inevitable, but it didn't help that with all these streamers and the different things and cutting the cables and not doing this and not doing that and having everybody pay, and then all the messaging and the politics and the lecturing. And at the end, people were just like, hey, why don't I go to YouTube? This is free and this is interesting. It's happening more in real time. And yes, people are looking for entertainment in different places. I also want to say that Joshua Calkins, after E. Clay Thomason had its question, Joshua Calkins says replaced by VR/psychedelics, definitely. So that's kind of what I was saying. Edge of time, maybe Hollywood will quit phoning it in. Also, that would be nice. Joshua Calkins, hi. Edge of time, that would be Empress NM, that would be nice. They've been using woke as a cover for phoning it in for the last 10 years. Agree with that. Empress NM, Suit, Cheers, Friends, Seinfeld, Frasier. Those are all these old shows that people are now watching because they don't want to watch this new stuff.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they used to be able to make jokes about things and not everybody was offended. And those shows are still around. So people are like, you know what? This is funnier than the nonsense they're doing now. Comedies now barely exist. They can't even make a comedy now. Tornadoes, movies based on old school content sells. I agree. Joshua Calkins, even when they corrupt it all. Edge of time. This was something about the thing. Empress NM, organic human stories are more timeless and relatable than the engineered kind. Butter is tastier than margarine. I agree. Joshua Calkins, did he see the third and fourth season? Third and fourth season of Enterprise. I liked that show. I thought it was good. I don't know if maybe the question for you, Nick, but I liked it. Matthew
I
Marcel.
watched every episode. So um, part of my frustration with the show, like I play it up a little bit around price because I was shocked at how much he enjoyed it. Because at the time, this is before YouTube had really blown up and all this kind of stuff. But at the time, I would go into forums with people, and we were hate watching the show at a certain point. And so just like everybody does now, every time something Star Wars drops, every time a new Star Trek they're going on and they're making the YouTube videos. We were doing that in chat rooms about this show, just, and a lot of it had to do with how Vulcans were handled. And we also didn't like just how it's sometimes weak they made Archer's character. I really like Scott Bakula as an actor, and I was really excited when he was cast as the captain. And they wanted to show that humans were new to the universe and we were not the strong people. And so everybody was pushing the Enterprise around. And I get what they were going for, but I really didn't like that. And I just remember, I can't remember what episode it was, and I think it was the Klingons. And he kept giving the Klingons warnings, and then they're like, shields at 10%, shields at this, and then they're like, shields are gone, and he says, that's it, and then he says, fire, and they fire at it, and they like negligible damage. And I just was like, oh. So there were things.
Don't know,
I do agree in season the season before the last season, in season 3, they were Terry Metalis was working on that. They were going for some big plot, and then there wasn't follow through on it. The temporal time war. I was interested in that, but then it didn't go anywhere. And then in the final season, that's when they did all of the fan service episodes, and I did really enjoy that. And I really do think, as Price said, if they went on, because something like the example of Voyager, or TNG, or Deep Space Nine, when you get to the end of the show, and you really get to love those characters, you can go back and watch those episodes that, some of them are just bad, but some of them, they were 6s out of 10. But now that you love those characters, all of a sudden you care. And when you do a rewatch, all of a sudden that episode that was a 6 out of 10, well, now it's like a 7.5. And Enterprise never got that for me. It never got to a point where I started loving the show.
I think they're great.
And then I could go back and rewatch it.
So Matthew Marcillo says Star Trek Enterprise was very good and the best to keep everything up with the existing lore. Yeah, the series finale kind of messed up a bit. The series itself was very good. Edge of Time, but if you tried frozen butter sticks, some carnivore influencers use it as a hedge against super cravings. Joshua Calkins, whereas new Kurtzman Trek is just wall-to-wall poop. I agree with that. Empress and M, just stay away from Voyager. 180-degree flip and bad good episode numbers. I actually started watching Voyager. I didn't hate it, but it didn't grab me. And there's so many episodes for me to watch. It's the only Star Trek show that I haven't watched. I've seen all the movies. I've seen all the shows. I've seen every single thing except for Voyager that I started watching it and didn't finish it. Or I'm actually still stuck, I think, in the first season or something like that. Maybe I watched half of the first season and was never, somehow it's a hurdle that was difficult for me to get through, but I want to try to do it again. Matthew Marcillo, both The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine really did not begin to find their groove until the third, fourth season. Voyager also took at least 2 seasons to really find the best stories. I agree. Joshua Calkins agrees with me also. Tornadoes, not all sequels are good, like Never Ending Story Part 2 and 3 were bad. I didn't even see those movies. I saw the first one. I don't know what the 2 and 3 even is. Edge of Time, I tried to watch by Stardate. Can't make it past episode 7 of Enterprise. That's fair enough. Joshua Calkins, Voyager had some greatness, but it was rocky. The Wolfman Heart, I'm late. Yes, you are, but we're still happy to see you here. Matthew Marcillo, Voyager did struggle throughout its run, but I give the series credit for nailing the series finale and giving the fans exactly what they wanted to see since the beginning. I wouldn't know because I haven't watched it. Edge of Time, not to mention the reward for finishing is watching STD. I'm not really sure what that means. Joshua Calkins.
Star Trek Discovery.
No, I know what that means, but I'm saying the reward for finishing is watching STD. What kind of, that's not a reward, watching STD. I've watched a few episodes of STD and then I never wanted to watch it again. That's not a
You get a
reward at all.
visual STD. That's what you get.
You get a visual STD. Yes, Joshua Calkins' Neverending Story 2 was shockingly bad. I actually didn't know that movie even existed. I only know of one Neverending Story. It's the original Neverending Story. I don't know what number 2
I
is.
know they're doing a remake.
That's going to be probably terrible. Matthew Marcillo,
Yes.
Neverending Story 2 was shockingly cringe, and Neverending Story 3 should have never been made for Jack Black. Really? Jack Black is in it. I don't even know what that movie is. Joshua Calkins agrees. Joshua Calkins, CSI New York. So I was right about Gary Sinise and the show that he was talking about. I tried watching that show with Gary Sinise. I didn't think it was very good. I couldn't get into it.
I watched it.
Edge of Time says, I remember cringing. I don't know if cringing from Gary Sinise or what he was cringing from. Matthew Marcillo, yes, it is CSI New York and Gary Sinise's show. I like the final 2 seasons. They weren't good, not as good. I agree. Then somebody posted his blog here for some reason. I don't know why. Matthew Marcillo, I like Bridget Moynihan as an actress, but her character, Erin, is too cold and not likable like her dad on the show. Joshua Calkins agreed. Ribbon Even Muhammad agreed. YouTube is huge. I think bigger than Netflix. Joshua Calkins, Enterprise, Rocket Boy. Wow, there's a lot of people here. Rocket Boy 3796. I mean, they will make certain jokes in Nickelodeon. Rida Ibn Muhammad, new generation spend most of their time on TikTok, YouTube movies, not as important to them. I agree. Matthew Marcillo. Always loved the fact Bot, Sam, and Al from Quantum Leap, also Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell reunited on the Enterprise. I love that episode that they reunited on the Enterprise. Joshua Calkins, Enterprise let down Scott for years and had no direction for years. Eventually, it congealed into great Star Trek. Rida Ibn Muhammad, Enterprise, I tried so hard to like it. It was too dry, super slow tempo, horrible tech. Fallout was better. Joshua Calkins, it got much better. Rida Ibn Muhammad, it did get better. I forced myself to watch all the seasons. Whew. Okay. We got through all.
I sent you a thing on Twitter of some other things that I wanted to bring up. I didn't know if you had other topics.
Right? No. We should definitely talk about that. And just before we do, just one more word from our sponsor. If I could just find it, give me 1 second. I'm trying to find. Okay, got it. Are you with me?
Yep.
Struggling with sleeplessness? You are not alone. Many face this epidemic, harming their health and well-being. Our minds, traumatized over the years, can't simply switch off. We need to reset and lower cortisol and for a restful night. Before turning to melatonin, consider its risks. Banned in many countries, it can disrupt sleep cycles and lead to tolerance and dependency. Instead, try Restful Sleep Formula by The Wellness Company. Formulated by experts like Dr. Peter McCullough, it's an all-natural alternative. With ingredients like ashwagandha, kava, and chamomile, this formula offers everything for deep, rejuvenating sleep. Save 56% on these ingredients with Restful Sleep Formula, plus an extra 10% off and free shipping with code STUDIO. Don't just dream of better sleep. Make it a reality. Visit twc.health/studio today and use code STUDIO at checkout. And you see the code, the link is here that you could check it out. And I'll also add all these things, of course, after we stream. I'll add it to our description. So thank you for that.
I'm going to have to check it out. I used to use melatonin, but I felt like I was taking it to make myself go to sleep, but yet I would wake up feeling worse.
You know, I only once tried it, that melatonin thing. I got it, and I'm like, oh, this is so great. And I took it, and it made me feel very weird. And I think that for like 24 hours, I felt like something was wrong with me, and I never took it again. So, yeah, I actually am not a fan of taking melatonin, but this other solution that was discussed here, it sounds interesting. I mean, the ingredients sounded pretty good, and to me, at least in my ears, I'm not a doctor, I don't know, but it sounds interesting. So, yeah, good to hear. And, You have sent me now a few things. There are a few things that we didn't go over, but uh,
Two of them in the gaming that would have been stuff that Dread Roberts might have brought up.
right. I mean, first of all, before if we're already talking about the gaming, there's this game Stellar Blade. And Stellar
Yes.
Blade has a very attractive woman in it, and a lot of these kind of weirdos are having meltdowns because of this lady that looks good, which is so stupid. I mean, I don't know why. They have such an issue that she looks good, and that men think she looks good. I think this is like the dumbest thing ever. And
So, um, I have a kind of a little outside perspective on this because it's kind of been I've kind of had my ear. I've always been fascinated with like gaming marketing and all this stuff, and the kind of the community there. And if you were to say 2009, 2010, gamers were these same people who are writing these articles were upset at conservative religious people who were having a problem with this stuff, and especially like conservative religious politicians that were, oh, get this stuff out of our games. What are you exposing our kids to? And these were the same people that are now bashing this are the same people who were bashing those people who were conservative. And so as somebody who's a minister and a gamer, I find this just kind of baffling.
There aren't many ministers out there that are also gamers, but Nick is a minister and a gamer. That is a true story.
Yeah. So it just I look at that, and it's the hypocrisy, because the message is whatever the current message is. They just jump on it, you know.
Like this
And
lady is jumping. Now, apparently, Grums, first of all, there's two things. One, there was something on a wall that said hard R that I guess somebody thought this was offensive, so they removed it in some patch. And the other thing that Grums was saying, that he thinks that they were changing this outfit, that this outfit was too naughty, and now they don't want it, and they're trying to patch this out of existence as well. This is all really, really dumb. I
they're
don't like.
already complaining about what they changed the hard R to,
They,
because
tra- they
apparently whatever the new word was
It was crime.
when
I
you
think
put
they
an
wrote
R at the
crime
end of it.
instead or something.
Yeah, but it has now an arm at the end, so that makes it crimer, which is another slang term.
These people are so stupid. I
I
feel
was
like,
like,
this. I love seeing the reaction, though. I feel like, this backlash we're seeing to all the gaming stuff. It's really nice to see. I am enjoying it. It's been a while since I've seen a group of people really fight back this way, and it also shows how we're in a different place we are today than we were 10 years ago. That, whether it's on Twitter X or on YouTube, there's so many avenues to actually criticize these phony baloney kind of gaming journalists, which aren't worth anything. And I really like what's going on here. So yeah, this is one thing that I know that probably Dredd would have brought up. This was talked about a lot today. In addition, you also sent me some interesting things. Let me see for a second.
some one
Okay.
was
So Adam Sessler. Uh,
yes.
so didn't he shut down his account today or something like that?
Yeah, so he went on a meltdown today. He's gone on multiple meltdowns recently. He had one where he completely, at the fall of G4, because he was kind of at the head of that, he just basically said he was done with the gaming industry, that gamers are losers and all that. But this one specifically, and I'm going to touch on what it is. I know this is not a political show, and I'm not really a political person, but there's a lot of protesting going on about the war going on between Israel and Palestine at a lot of colleges. And there were some videos, and I saw some of this, and there was one where it talked about extreme police brutality, and I watched what I thought was like casebook good police behavior of diffusing a really bad situation and removing a person. I have no idea why they were removing the person or any of that, but Adam Sessler saw some of this stuff, and he's someone who is of Jewish descent, and he went on this rant about how all these young kids who are pro-Palestine are Trump supporters.
That's a weird take. That's actually a weird take. I actually, I would say that I highly doubt that that's the case. I think that
right.
what happens is that this to me, I'll tell you what, this to me represents, and I don't know much, and like you said, we don't talk a lot about politics here, and it's not really my thing, but I would say that sometimes you have people, and it doesn't matter what their faith or what their background is, that they're so kind of double down, triple down on their whatever extreme politics that they have, that even when something happens which is obviously not fitting with their narrative, they will try to spin it and present it as though it fits their narrative. And for him to somehow spin that they're all Trump supporters, no, I think most Trump supporters understand. Again, this is my personal opinion. When you see people standing around saying negative things about the U.S., and I'm saying this very, very kind of mildly, to put it mildly, saying negative things about the U.S. and taking over things, kind of occupying it with tents and doing that kind of Chaz type of situation, I don't think that people that are Trump supporters see this and think, yes, it's so great that people don't like America. I don't really think that's their thing. So I would actually argue that it's probably not true. I didn't see his tweets. I don't know what happened. I just know that by the end of it, I think he just deleted his Twitter account or something.
Well, he started championing on, because a lot of people were complaining about how aggressive the police were being, and he says, "I think it's great. These are all these barbaric, anti-Semitic Trump supporters. I hope the pigs shoot them all and kill them all, and this is horrible." And he was just a lot of really outrageous tweets, not reading the situation. And it's one of those things where it has been very surprising, specifically with that war, how many people who were anti America getting involved in wars in the Middle East, there were, which is typically the liberal side of things, are, no, the U.S. needs to stand for Palestine. It is a crazy time to see how all of that is shifting, and but he just ended it all out with closing his account down and deleting it, and it's just, he's an individual who really needs a lot of mental health, because
he's a guy that back in the day, he was a voice that people liked for gaming or whatever. He became like a lot of these other celebrities that we see, like, sorry to give this example, but Mark Hamill or some of these celebrities that became overly political, overly extreme, meltdown, seem fanatic. Now, personally, people are allowed to have different opinions. It's just that some people started getting confused, especially these kind of celebrities, whoever they are, started getting confused as to what their role is. If you're an actor, if you're a guy that talks about games, or if you're an actor, people don't need to hear your every single extreme thought about your politics. Sometimes if you have like a fan base that really it crosses transcends like groups, and it has kind of a more mass appeal. Whether it's just like you're doing gaming reviews and people like you, or you're Luke Skywalker and people like you, and it's sort of a thing that universally people know him from that. If all you're going to do is become all this bitter and get upset about your politics all day, it just makes you look bad. And I think that Sessler guy for a long time has looked like an idiot. Sorry. Also, what happened with Frost and all that other stuff, and also what's happening now. And it's weird because back in the day, this guy had some credibility, and today he's just a complete joke.
Well, and I also think, it is part of the problem with people not being willing to come to the table and to hear other people's perspectives out, and just the big political divide, because I've seen this with other things too, where people, they won't like a certain thing or a certain group, and so they automatically assume that everything that they don't like, these people must like. And I remember there was one YouTuber that I watched a lot, and he really liked The Last Jedi, and he blew up and he said, all you people complaining about Last Jedi are the exact same people who love Zack Snyder. And I go, well, there's some overlap. There are some people that's true, but that's not a universal truth. That there are two different fandoms, two different groups, and they tried to put, this person was very critical of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and so they were basically trying to equate these two different groups of people that just, and I see that with Sisler here. He's not happy with what's going on there, but he's conflating that with, he's also not happy with the Trump supporters and some of the stuff that they're for, and he's trying to just apply everything bad to that group. And that's kind of, it's what the media does too. It's trying to vilify anybody for having a different opinion, and it then makes you try to fall in line and have identical opinions to everybody that agrees with you on this one subject you find important. And that's dangerous.
Yeah, I agree with you. And
But
I think you said a lot of good things, and I agree with what you're saying. And what you were telling me something about Kotaku. Kotaku is just so embarrassing these days. It's such an embarrassing thing.
So
now they're complaining that Knuckles is barely in his Paramount Plus show. I mean, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he's only in 44% of it.
It's probably fine. It's probably fine. I don't trust them. If they say they don't like it, it's probably going to be great. I wanted to see this show, but if Kotaku is concerned about this show, now I want to watch it. Now I want to watch Knuckles immediately. Like, they've said nothing correct for years now, and if they're worried about this TV show, it must be awesome. That's all I can say. And
one of the things that I liked at segabits.com, which is the number one most visited Sega fan site, they went through and just kind of, it said Knuckles, they reported in that article that Knuckles is only in 44% of it. And they just went through like all like the major Disney shows, like in Black Panther is only in 36% of that movie. They just went through, how many minutes Cassian Andor is only in Andor, 31%. Just kind of like comparing, like, it's such a silly thing, but they go through. You've kind of been covering in your Night Owl. Kotaku has been given. They were told that they were to do the game guides,
right?
And then the Alyssa lady, that has been
Alyssa
causing all the controversy.
Mercante, yes.
She went in, she made a case for it, and they gave them, I think it was like 2 months. So she has 2 months to turn their views up. And what has she done? She's picked anybody that's a big YouTuber and created, written hit pieces about them, any type of controversy they can step into. And they go, the Sonic fandom, especially when the Sonic movie came out, we saw that there was this huge uproar, and I really think that they're just trying to enrage Sonic fans.
Anything to stay relevant, really. That's
stay relevant, yeah. Because it's nothing about whether the show is good or not. They make this headline that Knuckles isn't hurt, and then they say it's 44% of the show. Well, no show is going to have the lead character in it, 100% of the time. 44% is a lead role. That's not, maybe you would have wished it was 60%, but 44 is decent. And it's just, they're writing all these articles. It's like one after another, trying to just generate controversy clicks.
They're just desperate. I can't stand what they're doing. and they're just super annoying. But I think that they're at a point that they're desperate, and it's gonna probably. It wouldn't surprise me if it ends the same way that the G4 network ended, or whatever that thing that they did.
Or
I
Rooster Teeth or any of that.
Yeah, I think that they're at the end. There's no way around this stuff. There's only so much time that she can annoy people. At the end, either people are not going to pay attention to her, take her less seriously, not mention her name. Maybe people will just ignore them. But I don't think that they're. I don't think this is a sustainable business model. What they're doing, and
No, and but Sony may have come to their aid because Sony recently, see, I think they're worried because to make game guides, they'd have to actually be able to play through the
play
whole
the
game.
games. Yeah, now
Yeah,
that's why now
they,
there's
they,
like
they do
easy.
reviews on the games,
And
but
now
like
they're
they
like
play like an
easy mode.
hour.
Now there's like
Yeah,
easy mode. What are they doing for reviewers? There's like easy mode that they don't have to play, or I don't know what. There's something I was reading that.
the AI will play the game.
Oh, come
You
on!
just
This is
watch.
just a bunch
It's
of
like
lazy
it's like they're
jerks.
trying to
That's
cut
what they
out the
are.
streamer.
By the way, we have some comments. Let's just see. Scott Bakula gets cooler every year. That's Matthew Marcillo. We also had Scooter2650 here. Good night. Thank you. Joshua Calkins. Probably been a while since I saw him. Matthew Marcillo. Scott is doing well. He was supposed to be doing a pilot for NBC when he passed on appearing in the new Quantum Leap, but unfortunately the network never picked it up. I don't think one had to do with the other. I think from what he said, he looked at that script for the new show. He just didn't want to be a part of it. He said it very politely, but he knew that show wasn't good, and I don't blame him. Empress NM, you can infer a lot from that post, like what cable news channels they watch obsessively. Matthew Marcillo, on the news earlier, I saw a graduate of Columbia University actually take out her degree and rip it up online. She basically renounces her college education now. I mean, Colombia, that whole camping thing that's going on in Colombia. Forget about the politics. Forget about all of it. This is just, nothing there is right, in my opinion. But E. Clay Thomason, Sessler has major TDS, and yes, he does. And I just want to also say that I can't believe I'm saying this just because it was brought up. I think that a lot of times people take somebody like Sessler and they think, oh, he's Jewish and he's very left and he's saying all these weird TDS things. But it doesn't mean that all Jewish people, that's what they believe in. He personally, I think, is just kind of delusional and weird. But I'm just saying that a lot of times there's this sort of, I also see people trying to push a narrative that says, try to make it seem like everybody is like that guy. No, that guy is a weirdo. Just wanted to point that out there. Tornadoes at Matthew Marcillo. She's stupid and she should have reimbursed her parents. I don't know who they're referring to. Who should have reimbursed her parents? Empress NM, it's wild how wrapped up some get and things that don't touch their lives in any tangible way. Matthew Marcillo, Mark Hamill really broke my image of the real life Luke Skywalker. In his counter, I may not agree with him politically. I cannot stand how sarcastic he has been. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Mark Hamill, here's what I think. Sometimes in life, you get to be in a position where you're sort of this guy that everybody likes, universally beloved guy, no matter who voted for who, what you believe in, what your religion is. Everybody liked Luke Skywalker. And if I was that guy, if I'm Luke Skywalker, I would embrace that. I would try to find ways of bringing people together because Star Wars, because good entertainment, because Luke Skywalker is the type of thing that would bring people of different cultures, of different backgrounds together because there's a common thing that everybody likes. And when not to sound like the Spider-Man thing, but sometimes with that kind of power comes responsibility. And it's also something great that you could do to be sort of a unifier, to be this kind of ambassador, to bring people together. And instead, we were exposed to this guy who's so bitter all the time. He seems like he won't stop. Like, it's not that he just once had some political take or opinion. This guy is obsessed. Every dumb thing that's like, the most extreme thing that his party has to offer, he has to peddle it every second and do it in a very kind of aggressive, condescending, and rude way. And you know what? Forget about feelings, politics, not politics. As a businessman, I'm telling you that is such poor and stupid behavior. And even on a more spiritual level, you have that option, you have that power to unify people, to bring them together, and you sit around tweeting all day like some dumb. I don't know why. To me, it just looks it looks pathetic, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
And it. I think on the opposite end of that spectrum, you look at William Shatner. William Shatner has a lot of different things, but he isn't overly about
No,
it, and yet
he's based.
he
He's
can
an old school OG kind of guy.
he
He's
still
90s.
uh, he still likes to clown around
Ladies.
with Mark Hamill on Twitter. He likes to respond to a lot of his things, and um, fun interactions there. So it's it's one of those things where I think a lot of these people also they say stuff a lot more extreme than I think that they would say to people to their face.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
possible.
amazing. You look at these people, and when they're like signing pictures at conventions and stuff, they aren't asking, well, are you of this party? Yet they'll put a tweet that like, I don't ever want to see anybody of this party come up to me, or I don't anybody who voted for this person, um, I don't want them to watch any of my stuff, or they'll say some of that stuff, but then they don't, they kind of over dramatize stuff on Twitter, and it's not to their benefit, and it's sad that they don't see that.
Right. So somebody last username who trained who, I don't know what that means. Rida ibn Muhammad says Matthew Marcillo, same Hamilton. Hamill is slightly neurotic. That's what he meant. Tornadoes. Mark Hamill, granddaughter, was okay. I just have to say this, Tornadoes. I actually know the mother. This is weird. Why do I know her? That's a strange thing, but it's true, and Nick here can confirm it. I actually
Yep.
know the mother of the granddaughter of Mark Hamill. Uh, some years ago, it was reported that there were some issues with the family. There were some things that went to court, and over time, in the past few years, they've resolved some differences. And these days, uh, there's at least it's established that the Hamills do see their granddaughter, and the mother just asked. She said, moving forward, she doesn't want to feel that her daughter would feel unwanted, and moving forward, she's not attacking anybody that was talking about it. She understands that in the past it was mentioned in the papers, but she just wants people to know that things are different now, and the girl has a family, and her family sees her, and she's in a good place. The granddaughter, and that's what the mother wanted people to know, and I respect that. And I think everybody respects that. She also did it in a very nice way. She's not upset at people. She's not mad at people. And I think a lot of people also were taking her words and misinterpreting them and trying to drag her through all these kind of fights, sometimes between different YouTubers. And she really didn't want any of that. And I don't know what this is thing that you were saying, Tornadoes, is. Just wanted to clarify that. So I guess just in case people weren't aware, and because she personally reached out to me and asked me to tell people. So all I can do is spread the message. Maybe that helps somebody. Empress NM, maybe we should bring back good old fashioned hobbies, model trains, puzzles, building birdhouses. Hey, it sounds good to me. Matthew Marcillo. Matthew Marcel, just goes back to say that, just go back to that old saying, never meet your heroes. I have never met Mark Hamill personally, but really sad to see his real life personality being so bitter and just weird. Yeah, it is really a never meet your hero situation. Um, Matthew Marcillo, oh, sorry, meant to say Rida ibn Muhammad. Sorry, they meant to type your name, not mine. It's a late hour. We understood what you meant. It's fine. Ibn Muhammad says, LOL, I got the message. Yes, I figured you would. Edge of Time, I can take a hint. And then there's all these weird emojis. I don't understand that. But Tornadoes, sorry, Price, meant girl that ripped up her degree should have paid back her parents, but that's my opinion. Uh, Yeah, I don't have any context. I don't know who ripped her degree or what she did. I don't have any context for that situation. There's a lot of weirdos doing weird things, that's for sure. A lost username. Jesus was based, and he named you. Okay, that's fine. Um, everybody has their believes what they believe, and it's great. And I'm fully cool with that. Uh, I actually didn't really understand the name the Uden. I don't even understand what that means. Nick, do you understand what he's talking about?
Um, I can't see that in the chat. So what does it say?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I feel like maybe this is a comment that maybe has some kind of underlying tone here that I'm not sure about. I don't know. I'll just leave it
Okay.
alone. Um, Last username, if you want to explain that better, you can, but I personally don't understand what you mean. Tornadoes, I mentioned it might be why people think Mark being bitter. Eek Clay Thomason, I don't speak emoji either. And yeah, I'm trying. So I think we covered a lot of these issues. You wanted to talk something about Doctor Who. You are the backyard TARDIS. I've
Yeah.
mentioned a few times here that everything when the Nishudi got I have a theory. This is my theory. Disney knows that there's no hype for their stupid Doctor Who. That franchise is pretty much dead. Nobody cares about this Nishudi Gatwa thing. And I think that at this point, they're just going that old route, kind of like the Alyssa Mercante. They're trying to annoy people, do the most kind of full on woke. He's dancing around in dresses, whatever it is that they got to do to make somebody say something, even if it's bad PR, even if it's people saying that it's annoying, they'll take it. At least they can say, look, can't you get behind this? We're trying to be this. They're trying to do the Moses Ingram thing. You get what I'm saying? They are
Yeah.
pushing every button. They just want somebody to pay attention. But the thing is that this franchise is so dead that I think in many cases people don't even have the energy to say how stupid this looks at this point.
Yeah. And I think Disney has already wrote it off. And I have a few things. So, despite all the things that we say about Disney, I watch Disney Plus a lot, just because it's. I'm not watching current stuff they're putting out, with the exception of occasionally a Star Wars show that I check out. But a lot of the back catalog that just Disney owns now. It's a convenient way, especially I watch a lot of the older sitcoms with my family, um, and stuff from back when it was wholesome, and uh, so I'm on there almost every day, and I get to see what they push at me. And when the David Tennant specials for the 60th were coming out, I mean, uh, it was front and center. You could not log into Disney Plus. It was flashing it at you. It was, no matter what I was there to do, I was seeing Doctor Who. Um, that's gone now. You have to go search out Doctor Who now. It's not in the top. It's not. And the other thing that Disney Plus, when they initially announced it, they announced that they were also going to be getting everything from the reboot series. So from David, or from Eccleston to Jodie, was gonna, as soon as the contract was up towards the end of the year, sometime after September with HBO Max, that it was going to be going to Disney. And for some reason, it never did. So I don't know if, like, somehow HBO had a clause that they could extend their contract, and they somehow found money that they got from shelving everything else to keep it. But it's not on Disney. So, or did Disney not fork over the money? Disney is not promoting it. But something that in the Doctor Who group that we're both in, Price, Tom was, or not Tom, John the White was pointing out that the current Doctor, Netwatgatwi, that his search terms, his things are at a considerable low.
Nobody cares about
And
him. Nobody cares about him at
nobody cares
all.
about him. When Jodie was the Doctor, the words Jodie and Chibnall, like, people were outraged. They were talking about it every episode. Everybody was doing a video. even the people who do the complaining reviews aren't even watching it anymore.
No, I actually, just so you know, my channel on YouTube, I've also been kind of busy. When they started those kind of earlier episodes with David Tennant, I made videos, and then that
Yep.
first Nashudia episode, I made videos about it, and actually, it was doing fine on my channel. The second I saw him come out with the dresses now and whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, I could make videos about it. Maybe a few people would watch it, but it's almost like people are just like, what, again now? We already know. We already saw that episode. We know what it is. We've seen them fire Millie Gibson. We understand exactly what they're doing. This is a complete Disney nonsense thing. And I think people are just tired. I'm sure you could still make videos about it, but I do feel like the outrage is kind of worn thin. And that's why they're trying to
Yeah.
push all the buttons, because people just don't care. It's like
Yeah.
not only Disney has written off this franchise or this show, I think fans have as well. Most people are just like, okay, it ended with Peter Capaldi, last episode of Capaldi. That's the end of Doctor Who. Most people can get behind that. That was the last episode. The thing at the end there, suddenly some strange woman appeared. I don't know. Nobody knows what that meant, and it kind of ended. It ended in kind of a surreal mystery at the end there. That episode, and that's the end of it. A
Well,
woman came
and
and stole his TARDIS or something. I don't know.
and the other thing is like during during the Jodie era, everybody was, as soon as they get rid of Chibnall, let's see what comes next. Russell T. There was a lot of hope, and what he did with David Tennant, I think, killed all that hope. And it was kind of like going back to what we were talking about with Star Wars, with like Obi-Wan. There was a moment when they could have recaptured and they completely squandered it. But one of the things that I noticed, there's a YouTube channel that is going through and doing all the behind the scenes things that are available on the BBC iPlayer that we don't get here in the West. And he's been posting all these interviews and stuff on YouTube. And he's going through, he started with Eccleston. He's currently on Matt Smith. But anytime something new pops up, he does the new stuff too. And I noticed initially Gotwell was doing all sorts of interviews about how nervous he was, how honored he is, how much he wants to live up to the character, and just how much he's in love with Doctor Who. But then in the last 2, maybe 3 weeks, it's been nothing but thing after thing after thing about, people being transphobic, all the buzzwords, everything to cause an outrage in all these clips. And I think they're wanting fans to be upset. And part of the reason I think is well, it's not a big viewership. If they can get those communities they're trying to go them into watching to combat the people who are upset. And we saw a little bit of that with Jodie. A lot of people wrote off the show, but they weren't big. They weren't a replacement for the true fans, but you did have people who were ultra feminists who were like sitting there and championing on Twitter, whether they were watching the show or not. They were sitting there and bullying people and doing all that. And now people just don't care. It's just, it's fallen off. Nobody's talking about it.
And also, first of all, I agree with everything you're saying. I just wanted to just say a little word from our sponsor,
Oh,
if I may. So right now, there's certain things that are having negative effect on people, and this is caused by a potential toxin it's in all of the quote unquote healthy foods that scientists have been telling us to eat with a fraudulent food pyramid for the longest time. And this potential toxin causes digestive issues, according to Dr. Gundry, a world-renowned cardiologist. This is affecting millions of people nationwide. Warning signs include weight gain and fatigue and digestive discomfort and stiff joints, even skin problems. Dr. Gundry explains these side effects are often mistaken for normal signs of aging because digestive issues develop usually over a matter of years and even decades. I can assure you that damage is probably caused by these quote unquote quote unquote health foods, and it's far from normal. The good news is you can easily help fix the problem from your own home. It's very simple. Go find this yourself at gutcleanseprotocol.com/studio. That's gutcleanseprotocol.com/studio. Click on the link in the description below the video. And of course, you can see it here on screen, but I'm also gonna add it to the description of the video. Thanks for that. And speaking of not feeling well and really having a bad feeling in your stomach, then yes, I think that Doctor Who, everything that they've done with all of this stupid marketing of theirs and trying to piss off people and making them like they're really making an effort to annoy people because they think it's the only way they'll get any attention, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it doesn't even seem like they're hiding that. It's like it has felt like the last 2 weeks have felt like a marketing campaign to upset people.
Right. I mean, this is a few people here. Matthew Marcelo says, "Congratulations, Disney! You destroyed Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Willow, and now Doctor Who. Disney is more than a destroyer of worlds than Oppenheimer ever was." Hold on one second. Maybe they're still trying to trigger some kind of social media engagement with a shock and aggressive awe. Yeah, and then Empress NM is saying that kind of stuff doesn't work. It doesn't work. They're going for the old playbook here, but I think that this isn't 2017. And not only that, even in 2017, what we've learned, and we've seen it a lot with Star Wars and a lot of other things, these people that are outraged online that'll click on all your tweets and then post comments about how outraged they are, they're the worst customers. They're the ones that are not going to watch the show. They're not going to buy any merch. They're not going to go to conventions. They don't care. They don't buy the literature. They won't get the audiobooks. These aren't fans. They're, as some people may call them, tourists at best, and they're not even tourists because they don't even want to visit the thing. They just want to do their politics. And that's the difference between building a real fan base and having a core audience that's valuable than between just having a bunch of weirdos with blue hair arguing online. They're not going to get anywhere with that. And it's funny to me that they still manage to continue. I don't know if it's called race baiting or whatever you want to call it. I can't believe that they still continue to try to use this strategy because it's been proven time and time again to be not profitable. So I don't really know where they're going with it.
Yeah, I think I've told you this before. During the Jodie era, and this is before I had fully made my opinion, there were a few episodes that I saw like a glimmer. I was really trying, and I was kind of just like, okay, I don't like this doctor. I just have to get through this. It wasn't until The Timeless Child that I was like, I can't rectify this with canon. I was just going to accept it as a doctor that I didn't care for and was looking forward to whatever we went to next. But Timeless Child I couldn't. But I went for Spyfall episode that they did. They actually had it in theaters. And so I told my friend Kevin, who's a super Doctor Who nerd, builder of the TARDIS, I said, hey, let's go to this. Let's take our wives to this, because his wife was just getting into Doctor Who. My wife hates sci-fi, but it was like kind of going to be a little experiment. We're going to take them to this, and then we're going to promise them a nice dinner afterwards. And then since they're the target audience, the female audience, let's get their thoughts on it. And we went there. My wife didn't mind it, she hates sci-fi, but she liked kind of a little bit of the spy action because she does like that genre of that specific episode. But she felt very weird. So we went there. It was not a very packed theater. It was, maybe 1/4 of the theater was full. and it was a lot of teenage girls with purple or green hair or blue. Um, but then there were the people who weren't. And I remember this guy coming up after us, wanting to talk to us, I think because we were some of the only other guys, but he was wearing a skirt and a leather jacket, and his head was shaved bald.
Uh-oh.
It's just like, and he was like, "Wasn't that amazing?" And he was like this big, gruff guy, and me and my friend were just like, "Why in the world is he wearing a skirt?" Because he's obviously not trying to look like a woman. And we were, and so my friend went completely dressed up as the Fourth Doctor with the scarf and the hat and everything, and we're there, and it was just, and that guy that was wearing that, he was the only person that recognized the outfit,
I
and
see.
it was just it was very odd. It was not. It was to go to a Doctor Who event and suddenly realize that no one in this building is your people. It was weird.
What can you do? But
Yeah.
on that positive note, I think I think we can start wrapping up.
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for being here. There's so many great people that were here today. Love the chat in this this time around. I love the chat every time, but I really like the interaction. When we see comments of yours and what things that are of interest to you and your opinions, it really helps us in terms of also discussing things and really addressing some of the things that you bring up. And I love that kind of interaction. And I thank people. It's great that there's now people that I get to hang out with on Tuesdays and Thursday nights. And I also want a special thank you here to Nick, who stepped in. Like I said, Dredd had some kind of commitment that he committed to a very long time ago, and it was just a bit tricky with his schedule. But Nick stepped in here. Nick is a really good friend of mine. He's super knowledgeable about a lot of stuff, and he's just an overall good guy. I mean, he and I may sit around here and complain about a lot of stuff in pop culture, but if there's one person that really, more than me, always rooting for things to succeed, always coming from a very positive place, I think that Nick is a very positive person that's always looking for things, for the glass half full situation. And it's not easy these days with the way pop culture is and gaming is, but
No, it's not.
it's great. It's great even amongst our criticism, to have a person that's so positive. And just because I've known him for such a long time, and I do other streams with him. Some people may know him from the Quantum Leap streams that we do. It's just nice that he was able to be a guest here, and I'm happy. I hope you like this kind of image that I created, the TARDIS thing. I think it's great. I think that you should consider using that image. That actually, I think, is a fantastic image. But
Yeah, I'm gonna share it to a friend.
if you're not familiar with Nick, he has some great channels, whether it's Backyard TARDIS. I recommend that one, and it's in 3 words, Backyard TARDIS. You can look that up on YouTube, correct?
Yep.
And then
And I talk that's kind of anything nerdy is what I talk there. Some Sonic the Hedgehog, retro gaming, Doctor Who, Star Wars, Star Trek, all that kind of stuff, and things. But the other one, the Adventures in Locksmithing, um, I, I will admit that's where a lot of my passion has been lately.
I really like that channel. I like Adventures in Locksmithing. I mean, the thing is that you and I just know each other, and we're DMs a group and DMs together and just private DMs, and we talk about a lot of pop culture stuff. So when I watch those streams, it's interesting to see your take, but I kind of know a lot of that stuff just from talking to you,
Yeah,
frequently. Whereas the Adventures in Locksmithing, there's nothing you can tell me that would prepare for that. You suddenly walk into this crazy place that's sort of like a Breaking Bad type of lab that you went with the police to, and you can't even show everything that you see there. And then a lot of these stories of some of these strange people, or sometimes just clients that are weird. It's a strange situation. You've run into
It's
just such crazy people that call you and try to get you to help them do things and call you for your services, but some of them don't even know what service they need, or some of them have been sort of maybe under the influence. Just
well,
each
yeah,
time a
and
different
if
story.
I were to break the thing down, um, you have a little bit of, I'm showing some of these houses and like the evictions and stuff, um, which you're going to see stuff like you would see on a show like Hoarders or Dirty Jobs or something like that. But I've also I work with people who are, you know, paranoid schizophrenics, all this, so wild, crazy stories there. But then anybody, just like it's fun to watch stuff on like the things that people say or do at a retail job, anybody that has a job where you're dealing with the public and you're going in their homes, it's amazing the things that people will say to you, or what they'll think, or it just always boggles me, some of the things that you run into out in the world. And um, and for years I would tell these stories anytime we gathered around or in a chat room or whatever, and people would always tell me, "Oh, you should write a book." And I I'm not writing a book. But so I
So
started making these videos, just kind of is that my way of cataloging this, because people seem to think that I should save them and tell these stories.
by the way, Rida ibn Muhammad said that they subscribe to Backyard TARDIS. So thank you for that. And for all the other people that subscribed, highly recommend Nick's channels. And Matthew Marcillo, God bless you all and have a great night. Price, Nick, Tornadoes, Joshua Calkins, Edge of Time, and all the chat sisters and brothers. Love, you all have a great, better tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah, and I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you to everybody that was here. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, Nick, I think it's time to call it a night.
I think so too. I can't only imagine how late it is for you. It's 11:30 for me.
Yeah, no, for me it's how could I think for you it should be probably 12:12. I think. For me it's like
Oh
3.
yeah.
Yeah,
It looks like yeah, my laptop doesn't like that I've been streaming this long. The screen's froze. But yeah, twelve
it's
twelve.
it's okay. So well that's a good sign. That's a good see with all the time travel and the stuff the time is frozen for us to do this stream, but now we're going to head out. Thank you to everybody. You all have a great night and we're going to see you here again on Tuesday on the Night Owl. I'm Price of Reason. This has been my guest, Nicholas, the Backyard TARDIS. Thank you all and good night.
Good night, everyone.